Crash. It will cause some delays probably for the next few hours this morning. Driving into Durban, Victoria Embankment is a truck parking. Lock trucks are stacked basically from the M4 Southern Freeway as you off-ramp onto the embankment and then all the way through to about the harbour entrance in some areas. Most areas, in fact, just one lane open for the motoring public to squeeze through there. And if you drive in Cape Town, there's very sandy conditions at what they call Sandy Corner. It's Baden Powell Drive at Monwabisi, bottom of Khayelitsha. Just watch out for that. That will be disruptive on that busy run through this morning. Also, Joburg Westbury residents likely to continue their protest this morning. Expect some major disruption through the morning on routes like Fuel Road and also on the main road coming in off on Deckers Road. Roads are open at this stage but likely to be closed as we get through the morning. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
The clock has just struck 8 minutes after 6 on this Friday, the 12th of September, 2025. Live and direct from our studios at Radio Park Building here at SABC HQ in Auckland Park in Johannesburg to wherever you're hearing us from this morning, in every city, in every town, Dorpi, township, Kasi, village and hamlet, from the highways to the byways, from the hinterland to the heartland. Good morning to you and welcome to it, the Friday edition of the Morning Brief here on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. Here's some of what we will tell you over the next 3 hours. Well, it's been nearly 5 decades since the death in custody, the killing in custody of anti-apartheid icon Steve Biko. Well, we're finding out now, the National Prosecuting Authority revealing that it is going to reopen the inquest into the circumstances surrounding his death while in police custody. The move has been approved by the Minister of Justice and is backed by the Biko family's legal team, and it aims to uncover the truth and also determine whether any criminal offense was committed. In fact, if anyone can be held criminally accountable for the death of Steve Biko, the killing of Steve Biko. You'll remember it was exactly on this day in 1977, on the 12th of September. You'll know from history, if you don't remember, that Biko was killed and died of injuries sustained during his interrogation. And there had been all sorts of accounts initially given. Jimmy Kruger, the Minister of Justice at the time, initially said, it was due to a hunger strike and uttered those infamous words that Biko's death, quote unquote, left him cold. So, all of that, a lot has transpired, a lot of water passing under that bridge. There was an official inquest during that time, but despite all of the evidence that was before it, in the end, that official inquest, apartheid-era inquest, coming to the conclusion that Biko's death could not have been brought about by, and I quote here, by any act or omission involving an offense by any person. End quote. So fast forward, in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, this issue again comes up, and 4 security policemen admitting to the killing of Biko during interrogation. Their commanding officer was, of course, one Gideon Nieuwoudt. You'll remember that name from that time of the TRC. So what we will do in the second hour at the top of 7, we'll be speaking to Helen Zille. You'll know her. She's the leader, the chairperson of the Federal Council of the Democratic Alliance now. But back then, she was a journalist for the Rand Daily Mail, and she was at the forefront of the investigative journalism that happened around that time, that basically called the cover-up and, exposed the cover-up that was taking place into the killing of Steve Biko. She will be reflecting on that era, the work that they did back then, but also the importance of going back to that story and reopening it and getting to the bottom of it. Because, as I was saying yesterday, that my sense is that sometimes it has taken so long to get to this point, such that even if an inquest says someone must be held criminally liable for the death and killing of Steve Biko, a lot of those people are already dead. So now what? It's important for the family to get the answers. There's no doubt about that. But you ask yourself, why did we wait 30 years before this step could be taken? So Helen Zille will be my guest at the top of 7 a.m. Men, you are at large, if you so wish, to officially take your spouse's surname after marriage, right? In a landmark ruling, the Constitutional Court has struck down a section of the Births and Deaths Registration Act that until now prevented men from taking their wives' surnames. This decision marks a significant step, of course, in terms of gender equality and dismantling of a colonial-era legal relic that has long enforced patriarchal naming conventions. But it's gotten a lot of people talking. It really has. And I was listening to the judgment. I remember specifically the words being uttered by Justice Teron saying, if they so wish, this is not going to be imposed on anyone, absolutely no one. You don't have to change your name to your wife's surname, your surname to your wife's surname, if that's not what you want to do. But if it is, you now can, and nothing will stop you at law. But it's a fascinating debate, and I'm keen for us to have it, because part of the framing from the Concord has been to say that actually this is more of a colonial relic than it is relating to culture. So I don't know what your experience is culturally, how it plays out. I'll be talking to Professor Musaqulu, a cultural expert, at about 7:20. And I say this because in my own upbringing, I remember that many of the mothers and ladies, older women in the community would be, despite being part of the family and at the center of the family, the marital family, they would still be called Langos, Lamabuza, with a reference to their parents. This is not to say that they have not been integrated into the marital family, but there was always an allusion, at least in my experience, in my own upbringing. I could be wrong, and you feel free to weigh in on that. But I do remember that you know, there would be a reference to La Simelane that still acknowledges the family from which the mother of the new family, marital family, came from. So I look forward to hearing from you. I also look forward to hearing from Professor Musaqulu on the cultural aspects of that. And lastly, let me quickly reflect on this. The Economic Freedom Fighters introducing a private members bill that seeks to ban all forms of alcohol advertising in this country. They're calling it a bold legislative move that they're framing as a public health measure that is aimed at curbing alcohol-related harms in our society. So at about 10 to 8 this morning, I'll be in conversation with Veronica Mente, the EFF MP, to talk about that private members bill that they're introducing. Morning Brief team, to your stations, please, for the takeoff. And Musa at the news desk, Rob Byrne on your traffic. Zaikan is watching all things sport, Melissa Buta with the Morning Brief in brief. Dauleng Lechela with insights into the economy, business and market updates. And of course, Sipho Mandula with an overview of developments around the continent in his Africa update at around 20 to 7. In it all, of course, I'd love for you to be a big part of the conversation. Let's talk throughout the 3 hours. Call me on 086 000 2032 or send me a WhatsApp voice note on 0614 104 107. Let's get the Friday edition of the Morning Brief underway.
So you thought you were building a business? In this economy? Good luck. But day by day, somehow it grew. You became payroll, procurement, PR, and pressure valve. You kept going when the freezer didn't freeze, the bucket didn't budge, and the bank balance barely blinked. What's that saying again? What doesn't kill your business makes it stronger? Or at least it should be that. So you thought you were building a business. You weren't. It was building you. Because this isn't just what you do anymore. It's who you are. And you don't trust just anybody to protect it. Chat to your broker about Old Mutual Insure Business Insurance. Protect what built you. Old Mutual Insure Limited is a licensed FSP and non-life insurer.
Lina like ke Hlompho ke kana. I'm from Mamelodi Sundowns captain. I'm a sports analyst la go SABC Sport. When I'm home, I try by all means to practice cooking. My favorite home cooked meal, I'll go for pap and masonja because I can prepare that with easy. What do I normally get up to when I get a moment to myself? I would easily, play my guitar. I try to practice a lot of Tracy Chapman. My favorite foreign language is French. Bonjour, comment ça va? So if I didn't play full football, I think I was gonna be a baseball player. What do I like about SABC Sport is the fact that we given an opportunity to educate.
Catch the exciting Diski analysis by Hlompho Long Range Kakana on match days live on Latuma. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
17 minutes after 6. All right, let's start with Melissa Buta with the morning brief in brief. Melissa?
Morning.
Let me throw a curveball. Is your husband, future husband, taking, is Mr. Buta somewhere? Somewhere in the mix.
I don't know how that will go down in my family. Yesterday, my mother and I already discussed this at length, and she's one of those that are not in support of this. So, no.
Be sure to introduce us to Mr. Butas. All right, let's get to serious business. Tell me about the power of the people is stronger than the people in power. Ultimately, I suppose this is what it displays. Tell me about the backtrack by Minister Pakstow.
So Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Pakstow has withdrawn draft regulations that would have classified educational institutions as credit information originators under the National Credit Act. The move follows strong public opposition with over 20,000 submissions received. Critics warned the regulations could financially burden students and institutions. Minister Tau has now promised a revised, more student protective approach while addressing MSME credit gaps and has pledged to consult stakeholders and transparently move forward. And a lot of backlash has been received following the draft regulation. So it will be interesting to see what changes he does make and how those are received in future.
And the Western Cape Provincial Legislature descending into chaos. We haven't seen in scenes that are almost reminiscent of, was it the 5th and 6th Parliament in the early stages?
Yes, so the Western Cape legislature descended into chaos yesterday as lawmakers exchanged insults and political jabs. ANC MPL Rachel Winvogel was reprimanded for calling DA members murderers and telling Premier Ellen Winder to stop lying. Tensions then escalated further when ANC MPL Benson Lenzu accused the DA of using black leaders as political ornaments and compared them to kitchen girls and garden boys, prompting strong objections from the DA members. The session also addressed issues like racism in Knysna schools, dysfunction in Hang municipalities, and the province's high crime rate. Accusations flew between parties over poor governance and political interference. So that was quite an interesting session, to say the least.
And spirited and at times animated debates in the Gauteng Provincial Division of the High Court around Beauty and the Bester.
Yes, so Thabo Bester and Dr. Nandimba Makudumane have urgently approached the Pretoria High Court to stop the release of a Netflix documentary titled Beauty and the Bester, arguing that it infringes on their right to a fair trial. The pair accused of orchestrating Bester's 2023 prison escape have claimed that the documentary prejudges their guilt, is defamatory, and could influence trial witnesses. Bester's lawyer argued the series portrays him as a beast and undermines the presumption of innocence. However, Netflix's legal team has contended the documentary relies on public information and they've added no new allegations to it. The court is expected to deliver its judgment this morning, only minutes before the documentary is scheduled to be released. So this will be interesting to see what the court says and what the future of the documentary is.
All right, Melissa, say hi to Mr. Puta. Cheers. That's Melissa Puta there with the morning brief in brief.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
So let's get you your weather then. Let's go straight to it. No warnings, so let's go straight to it. Pretoria will be fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon with a minimum of 16 and a maximum of 30. Johannesburg, fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, 13 to 29. Vereeniging, fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, 13 to 29. Mbombela will be fine, becoming partly cloudy, 17 to 32. Bulukwane, fine, 14 to 29. Mahikeng will be fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, 13 to 31. Bloemfontein, fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, 11 to 30. Kimberley, fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, 9 to 32. Uppington will be fine, becoming partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers from the afternoon, 11 to 33. Cape Town will be fine with a minimum of 13 and a maximum of 25. George, partly cloudy, 10 to 22. Gqeberha, cloudy with a chance of light rain in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy with a minimum of 16 and a maximum of 20. East London, cloudy with a chance of light rain, 16 to 20. Durban will be cloudy with isolated showers and rain, 21 to 23. Richards Bay, partly cloudy, 20 to 24. And lastly, Pietermaritzburg will have morning fog, otherwise cloudy with isolated showers and rain, 15 to 20.
The legendary Mamleta Mbulu will be on Seasons this Sunday, the 14th of September 2025, between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. Tune in as Khomotso KG Mweketi takes us on a journey filled with special moments of nostalgia, reflection, and music. Only on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
It's coming up to 24 minutes after 6. New video has emerged showing the suspect in the assassination of U.S. conservative activist Charlie Kirk leaping from a university rooftop as authorities intensify a nationwide manhunt and plead with the public for help. Kirk, a high-profile Trump ally and founder of Turning Point USA, was gunned down while speaking in Utah, with investigators now probing whether his killer was motivated by political or cultural grievances. Tributes have poured in from President Donald Trump and other Republicans, even as critics remind the nation of Kirk's polarizing views on race, guns, and identity politics. Let's speak to Professor Angelo Dube, who is Director of the School of Law at the University of South Africa at UNISA. Prof, good morning and thank you for your time. I must admit, I did not know Charlie Kirk until yesterday. That's just a frank admission. I know many other conservative activists in that space, as well as in the MAGA movement, but he wasn't one that I was familiar with. Tell me about why his death, his killing, has become a political moment for the United States.
Good morning, Professor, and thank you for having me, and good morning to your listeners as well. Indeed, the fella was known in some quarters, but not known in others. I, for one, picked up his presence or his existence way after he had passed on. But then I followed the trail and I realized why he would be such a polarizing figure in U.S. politics and also globally. He was a figure who was very, very controversial when it comes to issues around race, issues around gender. He often held views which were anti-women, views which were anti-black, and views which were pro-Trump in many ways. He hated immigration, but he also positioned himself as a Christian who is a God-fearing man and a lover of Israel and would never see any fault with the actions of Israel in any of the occurrences that we have seen in the Middle East. For instance, he believed that the death of women and children in Gaza was the problem, or was the consequence of the actions of the people there. So he blamed the babies, he blamed the women who died because their government or their leaders, Hamas, were the ones responsible for their death. He was a very controversial figure. He often spoke without necessarily thinking, but he would stand behind whatever vile statement that he said. He had ways of standing behind those words.
And what does it represent in terms of the conversations around gun control? Because, he was an advocate for the Second Amendment. And in fact, he's quoted as having said the gun violence is an unfortunate, it's basically necessary. It's part of what it takes, the sacrifice that it takes to keep the Second Amendment in place. What does this moment represent for that debate around gun violence, but also just the polarization and political violence? Because his death is the latest. There were a couple of other killings of leaders in some of the states in the last few months.
The irony in his death is that he died by the one thing that he believed should not be regulated, or that he believed was not that problematic. I mean, if you look at the number of shootings in the U.S. now, a simple space such as a school playground is not the safest. Yet we grew up going to school and knowing that in school you were safe, but not in the U.S. You can send your child to school, you can come back in a body bag. And for people like Kirk and those who believe in his philosophy, this was not a problem. He was not necessarily focused on issues such as those which are disturbing in society, where children are shot in schools and that there's no regulation around that, where other politicians are shot. I think little did he know that one day, in full view of the whole globe watching, he also will be smoked out by the very same thing that defended so much. But what it brings out is the hypocrisy in American politics, in the sense that all these shootings, mass shootings in schools of innocent children, have not drawn the amount of energy and condemnation and sympathy that we see being directed now to the death of Mr. Kirk. Even from the president himself, we have not seen from the conservatives the amount of sympathy that is now being shown, including the bizarre act of wanting to fly the flag at half-mast because this guy died. So it does reveal the hypocrisy in that fact.
All right. Thank you for that. Let's leave it there for this morning. Professor Angelo Dube is the director of the School of Law at UNISA.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning. Let's start with the rugby. Springbok hooker Marnus van der Merwe insisting the Boks have learned their lesson from Eden Park and are ready to stop the All Blacks line-out tricks in Wellington. With Eben Etzebeth given a rest, Lood de Jager and Rowan Nokia will lock the scrum. The Boks look to even the Rugby Championship Series. That's tomorrow.
They played the tricks very well, but they did. We looked at a video. We planned how we're going to stop it. We planned how we're going to make them do more errors. So, I think it's just going back to the old tactics and see where we can stop them. So, we will just go and play the game.
Let's go to soccer. Orlando Pirates and Stellenbosch FC meet in the 2025 MTN8 final at Mbombela Stadium tomorrow, 6 p.m. The Buccaneers, chasing a fourth straight title and a 14th overall, arrive in top form after 4 consecutive wins, including a semi-final triumph over Mamelodi Sundowns. Stellenbosch, meanwhile, enters underdogs, having won just once in their last 4 outings. With history and momentum favouring Pirates, Stellies will need the grit and the precision to flip the script. You can catch it live on SABC Sport. On to cycling, and Filippo Ganna won stage 18 of the Vuelta a España, an individual time trial shortened for security reasons, while 2 protesters were arrested. Race organisers says the route was cut down by 15 kilometres to 12.2 after pro-Palestinian supporters disrupted several stages of cycling's 3rd biggest Grand Tour. During stage 11 and 16, strong protests led to the finish line being moved. And finally, golf. Tom Valiant and Ludwig Aberg are in the lead after the first day of the DP World Tour BMW PGA Championship at the Golf Club in Virginia. That's your sport. We'll swing back. Top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the High Court in Pretoria is today expected to deliver its judgment in an urgent application by convicted rapist and murderer Thabo Bester and Nandipa Amagudumana to halt a Netflix documentary series Beauty and the Bester. Government says it does not rule out the possibility of applying debt collection for water from municipalities on a punitive scale to those that owe the water boards. Majority of the country's municipalities are in arrears. And Brazil's former president Jair Bolsonaro has been sentenced to more than 20 years in prison after the Supreme Court found him guilty of attempting a coup following his defeat in the 2022 election. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
A very good morning. A major crash near the Bob Toll Plaza just outside Musina on the N1. It's a truck involved and what appears to be what used to be a bucky. It's a horrific scene. If you're driving to or from Musina through the plaza area there, just watch for some slowing traffic. That scene pretty serious. Probably will take a while to clear. Eastern Cape, north of Umtata towards Gumbo, there's protesting this morning. It's about halfway through on that section of the N2. So maybe you've got any plans to travel there, maybe Coxtown Umtata, do it a little bit later rather than sort of setting off into that area now where there are burning tyres across the N2 and nothing getting through at this stage. We are keeping an eye on the Westbury area. We have seen information coming out of the area that suggests the protests are likely to intensify across today. So that'll again impact the traffic flow likely on Deckers Main coming through sort of Martindale side of Westbury and also on Fuel Road near Rahima Musa Hospital where it seems to be the gathering point for the protesters. And Fuel Road is the first road that always becomes closed between Commando and sort of Perth Road. It's a really busy route taking you from Main Reef up to Auckland Park, so possible diverts around there again. Durban, a lot of trucks being stacked up overnight and this morning along Victoria Embankment. That's likely to reduce lanes availability for motorists coming off the M4 into the city centre area of Durban. And Cape Town, Baden-Powell worth a mention. There's pretty heavy sand at Monwabisi this morning. Be careful how you get through there. Watch for oncoming traffic. And then Baden-Powell into Strandfontein, heavier than normal. There's a problem that's re-emerged down that side with the timing of the traffic lights favouring Strandfontein Road on the sort of arrows rather than Baden-Powell. So it backs everything up on Baden-Powell morning and afternoon going to and from Muizenberg. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning to Ndauling for the first update of the morning. Ndauling, actually, hey, let me throw a curveball like I did with Melissa. Any chance, perhaps, that you could introduce us to Mr. Lichela, not your father, Mr. Lichela, your significant other. People are taking, their wives' surnames. It's now allowed. It's a new thing.
Oh yeah.
What's your consideration, Mr. Lichela, happening?
Listen, I would love it.
Really, you're all in for it.
I'm in and I'm all about it.
Okay.
Double barrel or my surname. Let's go.
All right, I see. So you were wondering why I'm throwing this at you, Daibo. What's happened with this guy?
Yes. I needed the context first.
No, hey, people are having a fit. Hey, people. Well, it's. Let me say, just debate is happening. Yeah. Healthy debate is happening around it. Anyway, Asikolap. Let's get serious. Tell me about U.S. inflation coming in hotter than expected.
That's right, Silas, accelerating to 2.9% in August from 2.7% in July. And this is the largest jump in 7 months and is driven by rising housing and food costs. The surge resulted in the biggest year-on-year inflation increase since January, as mentioned, and saw prices moving further away from the Fed's 2% target and potentially signaling the start of an upward trend in inflation due to President Trump's tariffs. Now, despite this, a cooling labor market suggests the Fed will proceed with planned interest rate cuts. According to chief global strategist at Principal Asset Management, Seema Shah, the hotter-than-expected report won't deter the Fed from cutting rates next week. Meanwhile, the combination of increasing inflation and a weakening labor market has raised concerns about stagflation. Despite that, the Fed's decision to cut interest rates appears unchanged, with analysts like Shaw predicting a rate cut despite the recent inflation print.
So let's talk in the entertainment sector. Tell me about Paramount Skydance reportedly making a bid for Warner Bros. Discovery.
So a merger seems to be on the cards in the sector. According to reports, Paramount Skydance is preparing a bid to acquire Warner Bros. Discovery in a deal that would reshape the global media and entertainment industry. Now, the proposed acquisition would unite two legacy Hollywood studios, Paramount Pictures and Warner Bros., along with major TV networks like CBS, Nickelodeon, CNN, and HBO, and streaming services, Paramount Plus and Max. Now, Paramount Skydance would likely offer a majority cash bid for Warner Bros. Discovery. The combined entity would have a substantial subscriber base, with Paramount Plus reporting 77.7 million subscribers, and Warner Bros. Discovery's streaming services, including HBO Max, boasting 125.7 million subscribers, creating a stronger streaming rival to the likes of Netflix, Disney Plus, and Comcast. However, the size and scope of the merger would likely trigger competition scrutiny.
Lastly, then, Daoleng, recap how we closed yesterday and how we've opened in Asia this morning.
So starting stateside, stocks closed in the green, with the Dow Jones leading the gains there, up 1.3%. Investors seem to be shrugging off the hot inflation print as they believe a Fed cut is already baked in. The upbeat sentiment also being seen in local markets, while mining production ticked higher. Factory output declined despite the mixed economic data, though. The ore share ending the day stronger, up 0.3%. The rand, in the meantime, making big gains this morning as those U.S. Fed rate cuts bets weigh on the dollar. The weaker greenback boding well for our local unit. It is sitting at 17.37 to the dollar. And then over in the commodities scene, there's a pullback in oil as traders fret about supply dynamics. Brent is trading at $65 per barrel this hour. Lastly, in Asia, stocks extending gains this morning, really benefiting from the improved global market sentiment.
All right, Daoleng, thank you for that. We'll catch up with you in the second hour of the show, just after 7:30.
Africa Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning to Advocate Sipho Mantula. Raz, you don't get off lightly as well. This morning, there's a critical matter for all of us to address before we get to your business of the day. I know that the horse has bolted for you in many ways, Memantula, ne? But any chance we could change your surname? You would consider changing your surname and taking up her maiden surname? Come on now.
Chula, that's a hectic question and a misleading question in the early morning.
Hectic and misleading how? You now have the option. You can, you know. What's her maiden surname?
Only Mantuli when it's Mantula. I don't think they will call me Mr. Mantuli. You know, I'm not sure. They'll still speak with Mantula. That is my mitigation to your early morning leading question or misleading question. Some of my colleagues say, you know, people when they saw the judgment, but people, you know, so I don't know what is it that I see or I hear, man. But that is the interesting of our cause too. I think it will be a debate for this Heritage Month. What is the purpose of marriage then when we have to change surnames?
No, absolutely spot on. Let's get on with the business then. Tell me about South Sudan charging the Vice President, Riek Machar, with treason. What's that about?
Tulas, this is very sad. When you look at the charges against Riek Machar by the government of the South Sudan in his absence, his party said this constitutes a political witch hunt, but at the same time, government is adding more charges. Tulas, they are saying beyond treason, they are looking at the charges of murder, conspiracy, terrorism, the destruction of public property and military assets, and a crime against humanity. This stems from Thulas. If you recall, there was a white army that overran a garrison of government troops, killing its commanding officers and others. And this happened in the Upper Nile state. And that's where they say Machar was the one who was coordinating those military and political structures to command attacks. This is worrying to us when you look at the South Sudan, that both Salva Kiir and Riek Machar were the leaders of SPLM after assassination of John Garang. They have to hold the South Sudan together, but here we see a serious problem to us where you are charging somebody absent from the court. Hence his party is saying it was a kangaroo court that will definitely plunge the South Sudan into another civil war.
And these third country deportations continue from the United States, and more countries are showing a willingness to accept these deportees, the latest being Ghana.
To us, we don't know what's happening with John Dramani Mahama, dramatizing also the issue of Rwanda and Eswatini. We're talking about 14 deportees, including the people from Nigeria and one from the Gambia. And he says that they have accepted them to us. They were willing to take them. And this is part of the agreement between the Trump administration to us. We have seen how there were many court cases even in the U.S. about the removal of migrants to other countries. Like I said earlier, we have seen it in Eswatini with the 5 individuals and 8 others to the South Sudan, as well as Rwanda. We're looking in August to deport 7 migrants. This is worrying to us. It's either transactional diplomacy on migration.
And then tell me about Liberia, Rwanda sealing a pact to enhance visa-free travel trade. Tell me a bit more about that.
Tulas, Monrovia and Kigali sealed the pact with their foreign affairs ministers, looking at 3 key areas. Tulas, you'll understand that Rwanda doesn't mince their weight on their foreign policy. Issue of trade, very key. Tulas, investment and cultural exchange, what I would normally call it as a soft power. Now, this meeting of minds between the foreign affairs ministers was to foster what they say is economic diplomacy and strengthening Africa's integration agenda. More so, we have Africa Continental Free Trade to us. Both Monrovia and Kigali took advantage of this agreement. They also went to look at their defense memorandum, look at issues of tax and electoral services, and this is very important to us when you see a country from the Great Lakes moving to West Africa to strengthen their relation, and this has been going on between Liberia and Rwanda.
And then, of course, Sipho, we've been focusing quite a lot on the upcoming election in Malawi. That's on the 16th of September.
Tulas, we are just counting a few days. On Tuesday next week, Malawi decides. I thought this morning, let me just look at the electoral context. Tulas, here we are seeing the increase of the what you call the boundaries from 193 to 229. The wards from 462 to 509. Presidential contest, Tulas, when you look at the electoral system, it will be 50+1. And this was introduced by the Concord of Malawi in 2020. This is very important to us. How the voting will work also, they use paper ballots, the biometric for voter registration, they'll be looking at it to us, but also to support transmission of the results. Why it matters most to us, there are many issues of manifestos, debt, inflation, governance, corruption. These are highly contested ones. And finally, to us, we expect the results to come out on the 24th of September. So this is within 8 days after polling, and this is according to the Electoral Act in Malawi. How do we handle the election results? Highly contested. Yesterday, we touched on who will be contesting to us. So we'll be following Malawi decides.
All right. Lastly, Sipho, your historical archive takes us back to that tragic day on the 12th of September, 1977.
Plus, it's a very tragic day when we remember Bantu Biko. It's a day which I always think will reflect, but it's also historic that the NPA today, it will be reopening the inquest of Bantu Biko. So we are not looking only at the commemoration of Biko's day today, but also remember on this show, we started last month on the 18th of August by tracking the arrest of Biko. And we said that the 12th of September was the ultimatum where Biko was the 46th person to die in the detention to us, and hence we have this inquest that the NPA in Eastern Cape will be opening against those who appeared before the TRC. Very interesting moments to us. Normally the Black Consciousness Community, Azapo, goes to Khosi Mampuru prison. That's where they do commemoration. Many activities are happening. Various universities to us will be having commemorations of Bantu Biko. I saw in Eastern Cape, Advocate Muzi Sikakani will be giving the lecture. Thabo Mbeki also will be talking today with the student of UNISA Tulas. Probably he might touch on the history of Biko. That I think is very important. This is our heritage, it's our memory. We must never forget 1977, the assassination of Bantu Biko. Asante sana Thulas, SAFM, still leading the conversation and observing the Heritage Month and Biko Day.
All right, Sipho, thank you for that. That's Sipho Mantula with your Africa update. Of course, do remember that I'll be in conversation in the second hour at the top of 7 with Helen Zille, who was a journalist for the Rand Daily Mail and was part of the people that exposed the cover-up into the killing of Steve Biko.
Let me get this right, Ron. You're a plumber by day and Pretoria's smoothest wedding DJ by night.
Yeah, it started out as a passion and now I've got bookings until December. And a smoke machine that needs its own seatbelt.
And you sold your car to buy a van through We Buy Cars.
Brew, it was music to my ears. Zero admin, no long queues. They pulled in, checked it out, and before I knew it, I had cash in the bank.
Now that's a banger. We Buy Cars. Geared for your passion, geared for you.
This year, the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz Festival invites you to 3 unforgettable days deep in the heart and art of jazz. From the 26th to the 28th of September, across 4 enchanting stages at the Sandton Convention Center, where you will be mesmerized by world-renowned stars like Esperanza Spalding, Hakan Bazaar Trio, Jasmia Horn, Elaine, Amanda Black, Michelle Ndegeyechelo, Louis Nechevale, Gabi Motuba, and over 50 other world-class acts. Take me there. Buy your tickets at Ticketmaster now.
Is there ever a bad time for a good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
So the recent appointment of Ugandan national Dr. Martin Sibirwa as head of research at the South African Human Rights Commission has ignited a level of debate over leadership representation in key state institutions. Critics argue that the commission tasked with protecting the rights of South Africans must be led by individuals who intimately understand and are rooted in the country's historical and socio-political context. I must give credit to the further reporting of Independent Online on that story. I'm joined now by Lerato Ngobeni, Action SA Parliamentary Chief Whip. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. Just outline for me how this sits with you, because you've been one of the parties that have been vocal about this appointment.
Thank you, Thulasizwe, and to the SAFM listeners. Look, our view is very clear. First of all, this is not about prejudice, and we look at this in terms of what the provisions of the Constitution provide. And although the Constitution does not forbid foreign nationals from employment, we believe that Chapter 9 institutions are intended to reflect South Africa's sovereignty. And so the leadership of such an institution, we believe that a position like what Dr. Zubiri occupies is shaping a policy as a head of research, shapes policy, and also that his role and roles of any leadership in an institution like the South African Human Rights Commission must inspire confidence that the institution understands and prioritizes the lived realities of South Africans. And so, we know that we are dealing with a lot in South Africa with regards to the tensions between nationals and foreign nationals, just given our socioeconomic standing at the moment. And we believe that an institution like that needs to demonstrate that it really does reflect the hopes and aspirations of South Africans and should not be viewed as one that may not be doing so at the current moment.
Chapter 9 institution, an institution that exercises a fair amount of public power, an organ of state. But honestly, how is it any different from the nearly 6,200 foreign nationals that we were told are employed at national and provincial government levels? And we don't know the details of the areas and occupations that they carry out in those departments. They could, for all intents and purposes, be exactly similar to the work that Dr. Nsibirwa does.
No, that is a true fact. It's a very true fact what you're raising. And so, we don't know. And these things come to light as they come to light. And we saw that none of us would have known, perhaps, if it wasn't for that press conference that happened. What we also don't know is the process that was followed to hire him. You remember that in a couple of months ago, there was also a similar issue with regards to the universities in our country that are doing something similar. We don't know whether the skill scarcity exemptions were applied in terms of, appointing him. We don't know whether, his appointment aligns with the Section 181's imperative that the Commission must be impartial and that it must exercise its powers without, fear or favor with regards to what the work that he has got to do. Now, we try to dig up on his qualifications and his background, etc. It wasn't very clear, except that, it seems that he did all of his qualifications, most of them, at the University of Pretoria. But, again, what we are talking about here is about, these institutions inspiring confidence in South Africans. Given the contemporary reality of our country, we cannot afford anymore to have these tensions that keep on flaring in our country, because it is seemingly that institutions like the South African Human Rights Commission and the perception that they have created in society is that South Africans last and everybody else first. And so we really do have to manage those, because when these tensions flare up, they don't flare up behind high walls and in protected societies. They flare up among people who are impoverished, who really cannot afford to have their communities burning up. And so that's really what we are talking about here. Scarce skills is what we are talking about here, that South Africans, if only people cannot be found that are qualified, suitably qualified to occupy spaces like these, who are South African. And so, this is what we have to find out now. Right. We only just found out now that, this is the head of research at the institution. But of course, these are going to open up even more of such instances across all of our institutions.
All right, I've got to leave it there for this morning. Lerato Ngobeni, Action SA's Parliamentary Chief Whip.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Update for the Eastern Cape motorists. There's some pretty aggressive protesting underway on the N2 north of Umtata, so it's Umtata Kumbu section, about halfway between those two areas. That's where there are burning tyres across the N2. If you've got any plans to travel that part of the Eastern Cape, might be a good idea to do that a bit later once the authorities have been able to get in and clear the protesters and clear the debris and the burning tyres. Watch for truck traffic coming into Durban on Victoria Embankment. Trucks have been badly stacked up today between the M4 and the harbour entrance, likely to have an impact as you come off the highway and head into the city centre. Looks okay. Pietermaritzburg to Durban, no major problems there. Joburg traffic where it should be again this morning. There's nothing that really leaps out and says, oh, you better divert around this or that. Highway's doing okay. We are keeping an eye on Westbury. It's likely the protests around Westbury, Martindale, Nuclear will continue and possibly even intensify during today, so you may want to just bypass that area. And Cape Town, pretty heavy backlogs on the N2 inbound. An incident just around the Unsmudged Drive, and that's pushing traffic queues back towards the airport. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
Be in it to win it by playing Powerball and Powerball Plus for a life-changing 124 million rand in total estimated jackpots this Friday. That's right. Play Powerball for an estimated 64 million rand and Powerball Plus for an estimated 60 million rand today. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old or play responsibly. E2 is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Do great solutions start with good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
It's coming up to 5 minutes to 7. The country once again being reminded of the sheer power of protest, with residents of Westbury and Coronationville taking to the streets over a week-long water outage, and in the process clashing violently with police in scenes of stun grenades, tear gas and rubber bullets. In Pretoria's Roslyn Industrial Hub, another community rose up, halting production lines as residents demanded jobs and accused factories of sidelining locals in favor of undocumented foreign nationals. But there's an international context to it all as well. Nepal, you will have seen in the last few days, being rocked by its most violent unrest in decades, a Gen Z-driven anti-corruption uprising that has toppled the Prime Minister and also left dozens of people dead and sent the army onto the streets. So let's unpack protests as a democratic safety valve, as well as perhaps one of the accountability measures that are available in a democracy. Let's speak to Prof. Luke Sinwell, who is Professor of Sociology at the University of Joburg. Good morning to you, Prof, and thank you for your time. So these are distinct protests, of course, the ones happening in South Africa in terms of the demands that are being made. But I wonder, what's the framing, what's our understanding of the value of protests as an accountability measure in democracy? And are we seeing it being exercised more and more in various countries, including our own?
Oh, thank you very much for having me on the show. Well, I think, as we can see from the recent wave of protests, especially in South Africa, but also to a certain extent in Nepal, although the demands of the protesters are quite different there, because there's a call for regime change in Nepal, and it's at a larger national scale, and which has seen, the killing of 22 protesters by police, whereas in South Africa, and that led immediately to the fall or the resigning of the Prime Minister. So that effectiveness of the protests clearly is there, although obviously one would have to look at the details of the killing of the protesters there, as well as the destruction of property. Whereas in South Africa, what we have is very localized demands. People aren't calling for wide-scale regime change, but they want immediate delivery in their communities after days, weeks, months, and in some cases, like in Westbury, there's been 6 years of this on and off water crisis, but you can see that these protests, whether we like them or not, are incredibly effective because they tried all the existing channels of government, local government, councillors, and engagement. And once they engaged in these disruptive acts that prevented people from going to work, for example, almost immediately within a day or 2 days, the mayor came down to address them, Morero, and Panyala Lesufi, the Gauteng premier, similarly called an emergency meeting and basically indicated that we will, at the very least, resolve these problems in a short space of time, like a week.
Is there something to be said, Prof, for the role of the so-called Gen Zs in shaping the language, energy, and organization and vigor, really, of these protests, as well as the organization methods through which these protests are organized, from Nepal to Kenya to, if we go back all the way to the Arab Spring?
Well, definitely in those cases internationally, it hasn't come to South Africa in the same way, because you can see that these are, in South Africa, it's like community-based protests, so it doesn't matter, it's not the age per se. But in the areas that you're mentioning, and especially in Nepal, Kenya, it is Generation Z. It's a generation that feels, in this recent major national protest in Kathmandu, that feels excluded from the decision-making processes of the state. And they feel that there's corruption and nepotism, and that they have no future being led by leaders who are completely disconnected from them.
All right, Prof, I've got to leave it there. Thank you for your time this morning. Professor Luke Sinwell is Professor of Sociology at the University of Joburg. Let's go straight to N. Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Time to switch and save. Call 08600 60,000 today.
In our top stories, Minister withdraws National Credit Act amendment regulations and government considers solutions for municipal debt to water boards. Good morning. The Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Park Stau, has announced the withdrawal of draft credit regulations. The proposed regulation, which would have allowed educational institutions to submit student debt information to credit bureaus, has been met with strong public opposition. Minister Tau's decision follows an overwhelming public response, including more than 20,000 submissions received before yesterday's deadline. The department says the vast majority of these responses were opposed to the regulations. Tsepo Mongai reports.
The draft amendments published in the Government Gazette in August triggered widespread fear that student debt could negatively affect graduates' ability to access credit. Minister Tau has committed to a revised process with focus on protecting students while also working to improve access to finance for micro, small and medium enterprises, this to address the existing credit funding gap.
Government says it does not rule out the possibility of applying debt collection for water from municipalities on a punitive scale to those that owe the water boards. Majority of the country's municipalities are in arrears. Deputy President Paul Mashatile revealed this while answering oral questions before the National Council of Provinces in Parliament yesterday. He says 25.6 billion rand is owed to water boards by municipalities.
We don't want to be punitive, but where we realize that municipalities are not paying water boards and yet they are collecting revenue, that's where that measure is being used to topslice their budget. But we are looking at mechanisms to look at the problem holistically. Because as I said, it don't make sense for us to go to a municipality, they say in Mangaung, and topslice their budget when in fact there's a bigger problem of infrastructure, old pipes and all that. So our intervention is going to be very comprehensive to ensure that we don't be seen as punitive.
The High Court in Pretoria is today expected to deliver its judgment in an urgent application by convicted rapist and murderer Thabo Bester and Nandipama Gudumana to halt a Netflix documentary series, Beauty and the Bester. The first part of the documentary is expected to be broadcast today, Paul Magubane reports.
Thabo Bester's legal representative, Advocate Muafrika Wamaila, argued that his client would suffer prejudice if the documentary is flighted, as it will infringe on his right to a fair trial and his character defamed, as the documentary portrays him as a monster. However, Advocate Tembeka Nxugaitobi for Netflix dismissed this, arguing that Bester is already a convicted murderer and rapist. The court also heard that Makutumana had entered into an agreement with production company and was paid for archive photos of her life for the documentary Beauty and the Bester. The document is expected to be delivered a few minutes before the documentary is expected to be flighted.
Lillian Ngoyi Street, formerly known as Bree Street in the Johannesburg CBD, will officially be reopened to traffic today. The Johannesburg Roads Agency announced the successful completion of Phase 1 of the rehabilitation project. The street was damaged after an underground gas explosion in July 2023. JMPD spokesperson Xolani Fihla says officers will be on the ground to manage traffic.
The JMPD's primary responsibility will be to ensure a smooth transition to the new traffic flow and enforce bylaws to maintain order and safety for all road users. JMPD officers will be deployed at key intersections including Rissik, Joubert, Elof, Van Brandes and Wanderers streets.
And finally, Brazil's former President Jair Bolsonaro has been sentenced to more than 27 years in prison. The Supreme Court found him guilty of attempting a coup following his defeat in the 2022 election. His lawyers called the sentence excessive and says will appeal it. The BBC's Ione Wells has the details.
The sentence for 70-year-old Jair Bolsonaro is effectively a life one. He will likely try to appeal it or ask for it to be turned into a house arrest due to his age and ill health. The sentence reflects the serious charges he was found guilty of, including attempting a coup. The allegations included that he knew about a plot to assassinate his election rival, now President of Brazil, Lula da Silva. His ally Donald Trump has said he is very unhappy, and the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the US would react accordingly to this witch hunt.
Recapping the top story, the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Park Stau, has announced the withdrawal of draft credit regulations. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Visit outsurance.co.za today. You always get something out.
Does your wallet need a break? Then an Outsurance quote is just what you need. Get a quote, and if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash. Make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Savings or cash, you always get something out. Get a quick and easy quote today. Call 0800 60,000 or visit outsurance.co.za. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, it is cricket. And we have the Proteas. They're taking on England later tonight at 7:30 as they cling on to that 1-0 lead in the first ODI. We also build up to the Springboks and looking forward to them reversing that loss against the All Blacks in Wellington. The details just before 7:30.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. If you're in Pretoria, coming out of Soshanguve, there's some pretty heavy backlogging on the Soutpan Road. This is the alternative for those that avoid the Mopani Highway. Just coming into Ondersteport on that M35. Quite a heavy backlog. The Mopani Highway is heavy today from Theo Martins all the way down to SKM Patheli. And if you're leaving Mamelodi, backlog and a half on Solomon Mshlunga through Bronkhorstspruit and down to Bronkhorstspruit Road and down towards the N4 Highway. Joburg, Mike 1, Boyson through to Empire Road seems to be about the heaviest highway. Quite a backlog from Brakpan to Benoni up that R23 this morning. Traffic lights haven't worked there for a long time, and there's quite a backlog to get through Benoni bound. Durban's M7 again queuing from Hunts Detman through to St John's Avenue Bridge, going from Queensbury into Pinetown is under pressure. Peter Maritzburg down to Ashburton, looking fine, no major problems there. If you're around the Key Ridge area, reports of a couple of stationary trucks, one at Cliffdale on the Durban bound side and one before Shongweni on the Peter Maritzburg bound side. Cape Town N2 inbound for Robert Sebukwe to Hospital Bends, busy. The R300 already queuing, coming up from Stellenbosch Arterial, slow going towards the Van Riebeek Road off-ramp. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 7 on this Friday, it is great to be in your company. Welcome to it, the second hour of the Morning Brief here on SAFM 104 to 107. Very quickly, let me tell you where we're going in this half hour. In the next few minutes, I'll be in conversation with Helen Zille, the Democratic Alliance Federal Council Chairperson, Federal Chairperson. And the reason we are talking is that in 1977, when Steve Biko died in police detention, she was then a journalist with the Rand Daily Mail and was at the forefront of exposing the cover-up that had happened following Biko's death in detention, and just simply didn't buy the official stories that were being spun by the regime at the time. So you will know that the National Prosecuting Authority has now announced that it will be opening a new inquest into the death and the killing of Steve Biko, and Helen Zille will reflect on that for me. Nearly 50 years since that event took place, that historical event took place. And immediately after that, we grapple with the cultural reflections and aspects that are perhaps at play following the judgment of the Constitutional Court regarding the unconstitutionality of a section of the Births and Deaths Registration Act that until now had, prevented men from taking up their spouse's surname after marriage. So if you wanted to take up your wife's surname, you couldn't do it until yesterday. In fact, it was a judgment that came out last year out of the Free State, and yesterday was really confirmation of the constitutional invalidity of that aspect. A few moments ago, I was watching on SABC News, they were showing a live shot of the street called Lillian Ngoyi in the CBD in Joburg, finally open for traffic. That's former Breeze Street. 2 years after that explosion that ripped it open and really caused extensive damage. So finally, we have that open once again. You may want to reflect on that. Do call me 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107. Let's get into it then. The second hour of the morning brief on this Friday.
I'm Andile Ncube umzilankati siqongo no George Ntomba eyazizala ke suka le emzimkhulu egugweni ila ke inkaba yasala khona. Your son got a star on his forehead, brightens your every mood when you get as old as I am. What do I like about Mzansi or love? It's home. Beyond football, I enjoy cricket. Or Andile ngasixhosa go Ace Mabheka. My favorite nickname of all time, like Captain Yama 2000. In everything we do, just like the African continent is the beginnings of life, right? Just like women are the beginnings of life. The SABC and SABC Sport is exactly that.
Catch Andile, Captain Yama 2000 Ncube on match days, live on Latuma. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Thulasizwe Simelane is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
12 minutes after 7, nearly 5 decades after his death in police custody, the National Prosecuting Authority has confirmed that a new inquest is being launched into the killing of anti-apartheid leader Steve Biko. Biko's death on the 12th of September 1977 shocked the world, though at the time apartheid-era Justice Minister Jimmy Kruger infamously claimed that it, quote-unquote, left him cold, and told the country Biko had died while on hunger strike. A routine inquest at the time, despite overwhelming medical evidence, sided with the police and declared that no one was to blame. Years later, of course, there was that Truth and Reconciliation Commission hearing direct confessions of 4 security policemen who admitted to assaulting and in the end perhaps leading to the killing of Steve Biko during interrogation. Let's speak to Helen Zille, Federal Council Chairperson of the Democratic Alliance, who was a journalist with the Rand Daily Mail at the time and was at the forefront of exposing the cover-up. Good morning to you, Helen, and thank you for your time.
Good morning to the season.
Your own reflection. It's great to talk to you. Just your own reflections on the NPA making the announcement. We'll go back into the history and where you were at the time when this incident took place. What's your sense about the reopening of the inquest all these many years later?
I welcome it to the Sizwe. I know at the time we managed to get a lot of information on the table with the conclusion that no one was responsible for Steve Biko's death was incomprehensible and clearly wrong on the evidence. And it is essential that we re-examine the evidence and see what conclusion would be accurate.
Examine the evidence. What do you believe has endured the 5 decades that have since passed that will guide and assist the inquest in trying to arrive at a conclusion whether or not anyone can be held criminally accountable for the death of Steve Biko?
Well, first of all, we all know as a fact that he did not die of hunger strike. We know that he died of brain damage, and that has been medically established. So that's the first thing. Then, during the course of the inquest, Sidney Kentridge was the QC. He was the senior counsel who was extracting from the policemen that were on duty and others who had had interactions with Steve Biko in his last days, that there had been what they called a scuffle, and that his head had been hit in the process, although they never admitted to hitting him or to assaulting him to that extent. They said he'd hit his own head on the wall behind him. It is a fact that he was unconscious, that he was manacled, that he was driven to Pretoria in the back of a police van, naked, and it is a fact that all of those medical records are there. Then, subsequently, the three policemen, I remember one was Gideon Nieuwert and the other one was Harold Snyman. That was his name, Harold Snyman. And then there was a third one whose name I can't recall immediately. They went to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission at the time. And the Truth and Reconciliation Commission got a lot more out of them. They admitted to some things about attacking Biko. But the Truth and Reconciliation Commission refused them amnesty on the grounds that they were not telling the full truth. Mm-hmm. That there is a lot of information in the field that needs to be collated, needs to be analyzed, and needs to be evaluated properly by an objective court of law. Then it will be absolutely clear that the outcome of the initial inquest, where the magistrate Martinez Prince said that no one could be held responsible for his death, will be shown to be the farce that it is.
Let's get to that point where you take us back in time. At that point, you were a journalist, as I said, with the Rand Daily Mail. What about the stories and the explanations that were coming out of the officialdom at the time? Just raised your antenna as a journalist, leading to you probing and perhaps working your sources into getting all sorts of documents, and share with me the process of getting to a point where you are comfortable that actually the story doesn't add up.
Yes, Thulasizwe. I was a very young journalist. I just finished university. It was about my second year out of university. And I got acquainted with Steve Biko's philosophy, although I'd never met him, when I was a student at university. And while I was a junior reporter, Steve Biko was a very big man. In fact, he was a bit overweight when he died. He died, and then a week later, the Minister of Justice says he died in custody as the result of a hunger strike. Now, we all knew that was a lie. People kept dying in detention. They didn't have the right to access a lawyer. They were in detention without trial. It would be profoundly unconstitutional in our democracy today. He was held there, and suddenly in a week he died. We knew that was a lie. And when Jim Kruger said that he had died after going on a hunger strike, and he was trying to say that Steve Biko was responsible for his own death by not eating, we knew that was a lie. A man can go on a fast for 3 weeks and he won't die. So this is completely nonsensical. So then my editor, Alistair Sparks, said that I had to go and investigate. And investigate I did. I went down to Port Elizabeth. It was then. It wasn't Kleberga then. But I went down to Port Elizabeth. I tracked down the policeman. I tracked down the doctors who had seen him. Yeah. They were all very, very hostile to me, except one doctor called Dr. Benjamin Tucker, who gave me a little in that it was a serious medical crisis that had led to his death. And then we could go to the family pathologist in Johannesburg. His name was Dr. Jonathan Gluckman, and he gave us that very important information, yes.
Yeah. Lastly, people like me, people like myself have questions that say the amount of time that we've waited to get to this point where the inquest is reopened in democratic South Africa has been inordinately long. And my sense is, I don't know what the whereabouts are of the various role players in the initial interrogation and the killing of Steve Biko, as well as in the subsequent cover-up. And I get the value for the family getting the answers they deserve. I fully get that. But a part of me just doesn't feel like it feels like a case of justice delayed being justice denied.
Yes, certainly. Justice delayed this long is justice denied. There's no question about that. And that's why that saying exists. But there's another saying, and it is this: the truth will out. And I like that saying, because people who do evil deeds must know that they will live after them, even if they cover them up in their lives. So the truth has a value in its own right and for its own sake. And I'm very pleased that we will get closer, at least closer to the truth than we were before.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time. Helen Zille is DA Federal Council Chairperson, just sharing her own insights and knowledge of the story as it unfolded at the time in 1977, and of course, reacting to the reopening of the inquest into the killing of Steve Biko.
This year, the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz Festival presents 3 unforgettable days deep in the art and heart of jazz. From the 26th, 27th and 28th of September, Umu Sankare, Ababemu, Jasmine Horn, Silent No and the Noisemakers, Najbonk Trio, Michelle Ndingio-Jello, Willem Siini, Gabby Mutuba, and over 50 world-class acts will be ready to welcome you and yours to 4 magnificent stages of the Sandton Convention Center. Take me there. Buy your tickets at Ticketmaster now.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
21 minutes after 7. I've got a bit of a chuckle because it's a serious matter, but actually it's set tongues wagging since yesterday when the judgment of the Constitutional Court came out, striking down a discriminatory law that prevented men from taking their wives' surnames. The decision marks a significant step forward for gender equality and dismantles a colonial-era legal relic that has long enforced patriarchal naming conventions, or does it? Let's speak to Professor Musaqulu, cultural expert. Good morning to you, Prof, and thank you for your time. Tell me your sense about the implications culturally of the decision of the Constitutional Court. And I emphasize that the words that were used by Justice Theron, if they so wish, men, if they so wish, to be able to take up their wives' surnames. How does it sit culturally?
Well, good morning to Thulasizwe and good morning to your listeners. It was a very important decision, I think, as you introduced it quite correctly, that it actually came to a situation where the issues of equality were introduced legally, because you cannot have a situation where some people are prevented by law from making choices. But then culturally, you're correct that, and the judge was correct that some of these things that we take to be our cultures are were actually introduced by colonialists. And a good example is the issue of lobola, for example, which was introduced to be 11 cows by Sir Theophilus Shepstone, who imposed that on the Zulus. And today people say, no, maybe it's not 11 cows. Our ancestors will not be happy, and so on and so on. But it's a colonial construct.
Yeah.
And there also was not time, for example, where it was compulsory. You had to do it. But these days now, let's say, if you don't pay 11 cows, you can't get married. It was not there before. And then, of course, also the issue of surnames. Surnames are very new. They are a colonial construct. People used to be known by their names.
Yeah.
And so it would be Thulasizwe Ka so-and-so, your father.
Yes.
That is how it used to be. So sometimes we fight over things that have been imposed on us, and over time we think that that is how things were. But the implications is that culturally, the man can take the surname of the wife. It's not compulsory, but those who choose will be able to do that. And of course, it's not very new, because in any event, if you look at, and I'll keep making examples with Zulus, maybe because it's easy reference.
Yes.
the woman who goes to marry somebody, she comes with her surname there.
Yes.
Her father's name. So if she's a Simelane, she'll become Masimelane.
Yes.
Of Musa Xulu, of the Tulus, and
Yes.
so on and so on. She also brings part of her ancestral powers, because then my children, for example, are married to a Manene.
Mm-hmm.
So the grandmother of my wife is the angel, the more powerful ancestor to my children than those ancestors of the Tulus. So it's not something that is completely out of order. I know the culturalists are having problems with it, because they read it as saying that men must, within 2 years, go and adopt the surnames of
There's no must. There's no must
No,
in it.
there's no must.
Yeah.
So once you read the no must part of it, then you're at peace.
Yeah.
But then, importantly, so is that marriage is between two people, and this ruling make it possible for them to sit down and agree.
Well, you frame it slightly interestingly there, Prof. Let me just jump in on that point. Marriage is between two people. But isn't it that in the cultural context, marriage is between two families, and therefore the importance of the integration of the families? So if it so happens, and I don't know to what extent people who abide by a cultural way of life and African customs-based way of life will do this, will actually decide that I'm going to take my wife's surname. If it does happen, how would that sit in terms of the identity of the family unit that is born out of a situation like that, with marriage being, of course, a marriage between families?
Well, the entirety of Lobola negotiations are an attempt to a construct that make different families to know each other. So that's why it takes time. For example, it was at some stage compulsory that you cannot lobola just at once, but they get brought in to a relationship that two people have established. And then, of course, there are other issues like, yes, you are right when you say then members of the families will be interested in running your lives.
Yeah.
But then culture is dynamic. It's never static.
Yeah.
The ruling that came in yesterday will gradually become part of the cultural practice. It will be resisted in the beginning because it's drastic change in terms of cultural perceptions.
All right.
But cultural perceptions are cultural perceptions, and there is also the lived reality.
All right.
Which simply says that today we live in a democratic South Africa where individual rights are guaranteed in the Constitution in terms of the Equality Clause.
All right, I've got to thank you for your insights. It will be interesting to see how it unfolds in the coming days, weeks, months, years, decades. That's Professor Musa Xulu, independent cultural expert.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
A very good morning to you. Let's go from surnames to scoreboards. England tried to claim the Proteas, but South Africa kept their maiden name with their maiden victory in the T20 series. They take a lead in tonight's second T20 International at Old Trafford in Manchester. We won the rain-affected opener in Cardiff by 14 runs with captain Aiden Markram and Donovan Ferreira starring with the bat. Play gets underway at 7:30 tonight. Let's go to rugby. The Springbok utility back Damian Willemse is relishing the challenge of starting at inside centre for the first time when the world champions face the All Blacks in Wellington tomorrow. He forms part of a brand new midfield with fly half Sasha Feinberg Ngomezulu and outside centre Kanan Moody as Rassie Erasmus opts for flair.
I haven't started there yet, but I have played a couple of test matches at the inside centre later in the game. But it's going to be a new role for me, having to step up into Dukes' responsibility is something that he's been doing for us many times in the number 12 jersey, but something that I'm really excited about, especially linking with Sasha and with Moody the back three outside me. So yeah, it's an opportunity for all of us to go out and play our game, and yeah, as I said, hopefully get a victory.
Now, the South African Football Association President Danny Jordan is not giving up on having Bafana and Orlando Pirates defender Mbokezi Mbokazi in the Amajita squad for the FIFA Under-20 World Cup later this month. With the tournament in Chile falling outside the FIFA calendar, clubs are not obliged to release players, but Jordan is hoping that Pirates will agree.
Yes, because we have never had such an excellent defender at that age. And the opportunity that playing in the World Cup Under-20, you have the whole world watching Under-20. And at that age, they're looking for the injection of new talent in their teams. And this is an excellent opportunity, so I hope we can find an understanding on the matter. And of course, he belongs to Orlando Pirates, and we hope that we can get some understanding.
We'll be back top of the hour on the Morning Brief Sport. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Park Stau, has announced the withdrawal of draft credit regulations. The proposed regulation would have allowed educational institutions to submit student debt information to credit bureaus was met with strong public opposition. Deputy President Paul Mashatile has vowed never to allow another form of apartheid in a democratic dispensation by scrapping black economic empowerment policies. The Deputy President answered oral questions before the National Council of Provinces in Parliament. And US President Donald Trump has called for a peaceful response to the murder of his ally Charlie Kirk, a right-wing youth leader and activist shot dead in Utah on Wednesday. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Really heavy backlogs. Northern parts of Pretoria. There's a big double whammy with traffic lights out. Soutpan Road and Roslyn Road. And then it looks like Roslyn Road and Paul Kruger. So there's some really heavy congestion there, particularly if you're on that M35. The Soutpan Road coming in down through Ondersteport area. Really long and really lengthy queues. It's a busy high volume route out of the Shoshanguve area. And it really is under pressure. We don't get to say this often, but Mopani Highway is probably going to be quicker than the M35 Soutpan option today. Joburg, can tell it's Friday. Things moving along a little bit easier than normal. There is a crash, though, N3 off-ramping at Linksfield, just backlogging traffic on the N3 South, as well as the Linksfield on the bridge. So if you're on a school run this way, it's going to hold you up getting the kids to school. The main road from Lone Hill into Bryanston, down through Sloane and down towards Bryanston Drive. There's some big traffic there as well. Durban, just watch for that truck congested along the Esplanade. If you normally go into Durban CBD off the M4 Southern Freeway onto the Esplanade, you're going to sit basically from the highway right through towards the harbour entrance. The trucks are just blocking both lanes, squeezing motorists into one lane, or sometimes a little bit less than one lane. So real pressure there. Maybe just head up into the CBD via Moore Street might be a better option today. M7 again into Pinetown, very heavy from the Hans Detman side. Cape Town, R300 running slow between Stellenbosch Arterial and the Van Riebeek Road off-ramp. Baden-Powell is under quite a bit of pressure down to Strandfontein Road. That's for motorists heading through to Muizenberg. And a reminder of the protesting in the Eastern Cape, just blocking a section of the N2. Nothing moving at this stage between Umtata and Kumbu. That protest about halfway towards Kumbu, just north of Umtata. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
All right, for the second update of the morning, let's turn to Dowling Lechela once again. Dowling, in banking, tell me about First Rand posting a 10% growth in their earnings.
And this comes despite facing tough macroeconomic conditions and a provision related to a UK Motor Commission matter. The lender's diversified portfolio played a crucial role in its performance, with a gradual recovery in retail and a strong showing from Westbank, offsetting early credit strain in FNB's commercial portfolio. RNB delivered a healthy profit growth, particularly in its private equity and investment banking franchises. The broader Africa portfolio's contribution was softer, but FNB's Africa franchise saw a 5% increase in profit before tax, while RMB's Africa profit before tax declined 2%. The UK operations, in the meantime, showed growth with a 2% increase in underlying profits. Now, looking ahead, FirstRand expects its underlying operational performance to improve in its next financial year. The group, however, is cautiously optimistic about the global macro environment, noting potential volatility due to shifts in U.S. trade policy. However, FirstRand believes their diversified portfolio will allow it to navigate these challenges and deliver strong performance moving forward.
Staying in the banking sector, Dowling, I see things are popping over there at Discovery Group, and their bank is now bankable.
That's right, Thulas. That banking unit posting a profit and rapidly growing its new home loan book at about 2 billion rands just a year after entering the market. Now, this achievement positions the bank to potentially disrupt that home loan market, particularly in the 1.3 trillion rand mortgage market. According to the group's CEO, Adrian Gore, the bank reached monthly break-even at the end of the first half of the financial year and generated its first profitable period during the second half ahead of schedule. The bank's client base expanded by 30%, and Discovery Bank aims to achieve 2 million clients and 300.
Yeah, you were laughing at me a few seconds ago, so there you are. Let's go.
Let's start that sentence over. So Discovery Bank aims to achieve 2 million clients and 3 billion rands in profits by the 2029 financial year. The bank's performance contributed to Discovery Group's headline earnings, which came in 30% higher at 9.6 billion rands. Despite this, markets reacting negatively to those numbers, with the share price closing almost 10% lower in yesterday's session. Commenting on the results, Jason Horn of Stein Capital Management said, while the results were good, markets expected better numbers.
Yeah, you know, out of the abundance of caution when I'm Dowling, I get the feeling that I should explain my use of the word bankable because, you know, captains of industry can be sensitive. Sometimes we have to explain the quip. It's not in the technical sense that, you know, they were not bankable before someone comes for me to sue me. It's a quip.
And I know your WhatsApp voice notes, they get hectic there.
Yeah, you know, captains, what are you talking about? Bankable. Was it not bankable before? No, it's a quip, just a play on the whole thing of it being a bank and now finally being profitable. So before someone comes for me. All right, let's recap on the markets at this hour.
Starting in Asia, trade in positive territory this morning, with the Hong Kong Hang Seng making the most gains, up 1.4%, and really benefiting from a strong showing from tech counters, and this following Oracle's upbeat sales guidance. Meanwhile, in Wall Street, futures are flat, while investors are sure of a Fed rate cut. Stagflation risks are creeping in. And then coming back home, trade in the green with the all-share up 0.3% in yesterday's session. The positive momentum also being seen in the currency scene, with the rand making gains as the dollar weakens. It is sitting at 17.37 to the dollar this hour. Trading in the commodities scene, that is in opposite direction, with the oil losing momentum today. It is sitting at $65 per barrel, and that from around $67 in yesterday's session.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ntauling Lichela with the second update of the morning. She'll be back with one more update for you just after 8:30.
Be in it to win it by playing Powerball and Powerball Plus for a life-changing 124 million rand in total estimated jackpots this Friday. That's right. Play Powerball for an estimated 64 million rand and Powerball Plus for an estimated 60 million rand today. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529 hash for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old or play responsibly. E2 is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
The Toffees are hunting for third victory in the early days of the league to maintain the position in the top half.
Chance for Everton, Beto, and down! 2-1! Everton are back in front!
However, the Villains are prepared to put a good fight to achieve their first win of the season.
Might get in here, Munoz trying to block it, rocking save, land behind from Richards. Best chance in the game for Aston Villa, ball over the top from John McGinn.
This is the Premier League. Witness Everton FC and Aston Villa the Saturday 13 September at 3:30 p.m. live on SABC3 and SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
All right, so you've heard a bit of our story for this morning. Let's hear yours. Let's start with your reflections. I see a lot of people reflecting on the conversation we had with Professor Musa Xulu regarding that Constitutional Court decision that came out yesterday and exploring the cultural aspects thereof, the considerations that may come into play in this context of men now being able to adopt the surname of their spouse after marriage. So husband can now take the surname of the wife after they get married officially because, it wasn't possible until now. So let me take one or two voice notes and then go to the calls.
Hi, Thulasizwe. Hi.
What's wrong?
No. That professor of yours, no. Thulasizwe, no. I know, no. I will, no.
Oh. But you're not saying anything, so I don't know how to engage with what you are saying about the guest that we had. I wish you had gone beyond the exclamations and gotten to the point that you wanted to make. Let me take this one.
Thulas is Chris in Maritzburg. The Constitutional Court decision really shows that we need to educate our fellow South Africans. Firstly, they do not understand our Constitution. They do not understand the values that we hold as a country. But most importantly, people must stop making outrageous allegations simply based on ignorance. The greatest human tragedy is truly clinging to wrong opinions. That is all was my take.
Chris, thank you for that. And I do also wish you had gone on just slightly a bit more on how that is demonstrated in some of the reaction, clinging to wrong opinions, how that is demonstrated in the current reaction that we are seeing to the Constitutional Court judgment. But I do take the rest of the point that you make.
Good morning, Mura Simelane. Nakiri from Krugersdorp. Can we call all the guys who gonna get married and change their surname to those of their wives as Bo Rakoti? Can we call him Rakoti?
Rakoti.
Fascinating one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I out of just my own intrigue, I read the story as reported by the BBC because I knew that the comments after that would reflect a global sense of, what's the feeling about this ruling coming out of South Africa. And my goodness, it was so intriguing. You should do that, actually. Look it up and just see. Just the variety. There were people in countries who were saying, what's new? We've had this all along. I think I saw a comment from Portugal that said, what's new? And I think one country in South America, I want to say Brazil, but I don't want to commit to it. But then there were those countries that were just taking us to the cleaners as South Africa. Taking us to the cleaners and just mocking, our whole situation as a whole. Let me take a call from Mzwandile in Katlehong. Good morning to you, Mzwandile.
Morning, Thulas. How are you?
Very well. How are you? Please go ahead. Are you changing your your surname to your wife's surname?
No. I'm not even thinking about it.
Yes.
I think this thing will help the foreigners to change the names to get us South Africans because through our sisters. Because our sisters, I think they are the ones that it's easy for them to marry the foreigners. I think it will assist the foreigners to get our Senate.
So you're saying this could be a pathway for people to mask their illegal migration status by basically marrying a South African and then taking up that South African surname. But why would you even want to do that when at law right now, when all the requirements are met, you actually can qualify for permanent residence and ultimately even citizenship by marriage?
Yes, but Thulas, foreigners here in South Africa are very
Mzwandile? All right, we lost Mzwandile there. Let me go to Ralph in Boksburg. No, in fact, Ralph, if you don't mind, let me just take a call from Loward in Giyani, and I'll tell you why. I just want to conclude on this theme before I come to you. Loward in Giyani, good morning.
Good morning, Thomas. Yes, my brother, it will be remiss of myself not to say long live the spirit or the gallant spirit of Steve Biko.
Absolutely.
Yes, my brother. I've got 2 points regarding the Constitutional Court ruling to us. I think the ruling itself has somehow de-Africanized our culture. I understand what the Prof was trying to say, that some of these cultural practices have been imposed through the colonizers. But to us, this has never been in our culture, Africa as a whole, that a man can even inject the surname of his wife and then be a double-barrel surname. It is the other way around. That's how we know about this. And then judgment to us, for me, is going to erode the embedded cultural norms and practices of us as Africans. But in hindsight, to us, the Constitutional Court justices, for me, they are going to regret this ruling in the future. Say, for instance, one of them decide to write a book. It's going to in hindsight, they are going to regret some of these rulings because they are eroding our culture to us. So that's my take.
But before you go, Lord, how are they erasing African culture when they're not imposing it on anyone? So South Africa being diverse as it is, cosmopolitan as it is, those who organize their lives according to African traditions and customs, who believe that the surname issue should be settled along those lines of African indigenous practices, will certainly continue to do so. There'll be no repercussions for them, no disadvantage at all. So that will continue. But those who want to organize their lives differently, not according to African customs and the likes, what you are citing, who think, cosmopolitan, modern, I want to go this route, will now be able to do so. How does that erase our culture?
No, it's fine. I understand your argument. But the thing is, as Africans, we know that this has been going on time immemorial.
Yes.
So if something like this comes from the Constitutional Court, it puts us in the corner to us, because unfortunately the judgments from the Constitutional Court are not reviewable. That's my take on this one. So that we will see as time goes on.
All right, Loward, thank you for your call this morning. Loward in Giyani. Let me go then to Ralph in Boksburg. Good morning to you, Ralph. You want to talk about this one Charlie Kirk that I didn't know about until yesterday?
Yes, good morning. Thank you. Thulas, yes, you speak to this Angelo Dube, I think his name was,
yes.
Obviously a far-left ideologue who also knew nothing about Charlie Kirk till yesterday, and now suddenly today he's an expert. Where did he get his information from? From the far-left nonsense that's being spewed about Charlie Kirk all over the media. He doesn't go and look at other sources. Now, I've been following Charlie Kirk for quite a long time. He started as an 18-year-old when he realized that in college and in schools that children were being brainwashed with far-left ideologies, and he said this is wrong. When he questioned his teachers and professors, that they would try and shut him up, and he'd say, I'm asking questions, explain to me. So when he then formed Turning Point USA as an 18-year-old, and his mission was to go to colleges and schools, have meetings, invite people who disagree with him to come to the microphone and talk and discuss. And it was always, he never insulted them, he was never unkind to them, he was always kind, and he would engage them and say, let's talk about critical thinking. Let me understand what you think, and let me question you using the Socratic method to question you. And sometimes he had massive audiences. Sometimes the person would say something so outrageous that the audience would start booing. He'd immediately say, no, you've got to listen, you've got to understand. He was never cruel, he was never unkind, he was never evil in any way. He was a deeply committed Christian. So now for Angela Dube to come here and say that because Charlie Kirk supports the American Constitution and the Second Amendment, that makes him responsible for children being murdered in schools. What absolute drivel. I mean, if you take away the guns from law-abiding citizens, it doesn't solve the problem. The criminals will still have guns. And then to say, and he supports the murder of children in Israel, that's an outright disgusting lie. And I'm shocked that any man can come on the radio and spew lies like that. And I really urge you to this. Please find somebody else to go to talk about Charlie Kirk in a more balanced way.
Ralph, and I'm glad you've put that other perspective of Charlie Kirk. And I openly admit that I didn't know of him until yesterday. But would you agree, having said everything you've said, and that whole point of hearing the other side, even if you vehemently disagree with the other side, that is admirable. That is something that we should all be practicing, right? But would you agree that when in putting across his own views on a number of matters, some of his views were problematic? Let me give you an example of ones that I saw. There's a point where he was talking about when he boards an aeroplane and he sees that the pilot is a black person, and immediately now he has to ask himself, is this person there because of DEI, diversity, equality, and inclusion, and inclusion? That's problematic, is it not? Why is that asked of a black pilot? Why would he hold a view like that? Just that's problematic. You understand at least why some people would think that's problematic.
No, well, again,
and why he was a polarizing figure. Yeah.
Critical. Let's do some critical thinking. If an airline makes an emphatic statement that their hiring policy is DEI, that they will hire a person of either female or black above a more qualified pilot, that it's a problem now.
All right. Ralph, your line is deteriorating. I've got to let you go at this point. I'm also out of time. But thank you for your engagement, Ralph. Let's see if other people will agree with some of the views that you have shared. It's an interesting debate.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Bit of action around Pretoria this morning. A stationary truck N1 north after Rigel up towards Castlefontein. So that's a queue that forms up from about the R21 highway as you go slowly into that one. On the port side, a lot of chaos this morning. A couple of big traffic lights out there. Roslyn and Soutpan and Paul Kruger and Roslyn. But that's that run in from Osterpoort on that M35 Soutpan road. You come from that side of Shoshanguve. It's a really big queue. It's sort of like if there was a problem on the Mopani Highway, you get that sort of volume on the Soutpan road. It's like that this morning. Crash Linksfield Road in Joburg at the N3, so the N3 South being held up approaching the ramp. Linksfield Bridge also being held up. N1 South is an unusual queue as you line up from Rivonia roadside down towards the Winnie Mandela off-ramp. That's not normally queuing like that this time of the morning. Durban, a reminder of the heavy pressure on the Victoria Embankment, the Esplanade coming off the M4. It's a line of trucks. It is an unbelievable sight. Trucks are basically stacked through two lanes from the M4 right down to the harbour entrance in the Durban Durban CBD. So motorists being squeezed into just one lane to get past that, and it's all quite heavy. There is a crash on the N2 North heading up towards Gateway in the roadwork, so that's about to get really busy. A breakdown between Ashburton and Market Road. If you're on your way to Pietermaritzburg, traffic are really starting to pile up into that one as well. Cape Town side, a collision on the M5 North before the N2 highway. Coming up from Kenilworth, some really big traffic through there. The rest of Cape Town looks fairly easy for a Friday, with the exception of Baden-Powell Drive. Mitchell's Plain and Muizenberg still queuing heavily into Strandfontein Road. It's a problem again with the timing of the traffic light turning arrows favouring Strandfontein Road with no traffic rather than Baden-Powell with high volume. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Spar brings you super savings. Get 1 kg D-Lite 37% fat spread tub for $34.99 and 100 megs free data on Spar Mobile, or 200 gram Baker's Murray biscuits, any two for 30 Rand, and 100 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Plus, you could win your share of 6 million Rand in instant cash. Prices valid until 22 September 2025. While stocks last, T's and C's apply.
Think about 6 years ago, when Amapiano was just a musical instrument. When streaming meant watching water flow, not videos online. And remote work was only said when your remote batteries died. So it makes you wonder, what will the next 6 years bring? Hino trucks now come standard with a 6-year drivetrain warranty, covering everything from pistons to gears. So although a lot can change in 6 years, our warranty promise won't. T's and C's apply. Hino, all the way.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Be in it to win it by playing Powerball and Powerball Plus for a life-changing 124 million Rand in total estimated jackpots this Friday. That's right. Play Powerball for an estimated 64 million Rand and Powerball Plus for an estimated 60 million Rand today. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529 hash for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old or play responsibly. E2 is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
So the economic freedom fighters have introduced a private members bill that seeks to ban all forms of alcohol advertising in this country. The legislative move is framed as a public health measure aimed at curbing alcohol-related harms in society. The proposed liquor amendment bill, spearheaded by EFF MP Veronica Mente, aims to prohibit alcohol-related advertisements, promotions, sponsorships, and product placements across all media. Veronica Mente, EFF MP, who is championing that bill, joins me now to take that conversation forward. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. Why is this a legislative measure that is needed in our society today?
Good morning, Tula, and thank you for having us. Good morning to the listeners. It is important in our days because we've seen the rise in the societal ills, and at the center of them is alcohol. At the center of the GBV cases that are rising and the incidences of domestic violence is alcohol, where partners are fighting because they are drunk and they make peace on Mondays. Over the weekend, families are occupying police stations, in particular mothers with young babies, sitting at the police station seeking for shelter simply because they are fighting at home. The rise of accidents on the roads, as at the center of it is drinking and driving. And very funny and ironic is that the government says do not drink and drive, and that's a crime. However, the very same government does not have a problem with alcohol being glamorized, alcohol being advertised and promoted so that people can consume it. And at the center of the teenage pregnancy, many teen pregnancies are emanating from the social events where young people are gathering and elderly people are taking advantage of them by buying alcohol. At the end of the day, they take them to places they do not know, rape them, and we then end up with children who have fathers that they will never know for the rest of their lives. And the perpetrators are never apprehended because it was a case of being intoxicated, and you do not know for sure who slept with you. You do not know for sure what even happened to you. You can't even point the venue in which this atrocity has taken place in.
So if the intention is to address the harms that result from especially alcohol abuse, is it your sense, though, that removing the marketing and advertisements and sponsorships and the likes will address those harms? And I'll ask this and juxtapose with the ban on advertising of cigarettes and tobacco products in this country. Is there evidence that says that has led to a reduction in harms related to people smoking, for example?
You know, Tula, we need to be very honest with ourselves, because you will have people who are now even diagnosed with sicknesses of alcohol, and those people will have to find a way and a remedy in which we are going to deal with those cases. But we need a society that does not reintroduce this culture of drinking and the abuse of alcohol to the new generation. And how is the new generation introduced into this culture? The exposure, overexposure of alcohol is because of how it is depicted in adverts. The adverts are the ones that are luring and enticing the young ones to come and drink. The adverts in social media, they are portrayed in such a way that it's the coolest thing. They are portrayed in the most beautiful places. They are portrayed with most beautiful people. And in many cases, they are portrayed with figures in society that people look up to. So if we stop that element of enticing society into consuming alcohol, we are going to have a serious reduction. Same applies to tobacco.
Yeah.
The moment we stopped enticing people into smoking, you barely see a person smoking. They smoke in some corners because we even regulated spaces we're in. The smoking must take place. So that scientifically, the essence of advertising is to reach a bigger crowd that must consume your product.
All right, let's
now
leave it
we
there.
don't want anyone being convinced to buy this product.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. That's Veronica Mente, EFF MP, championing that private members' bill around the ban in alcohol advertising. Let's go straight to N. Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Time to switch and save. Call 08600 60,000 today.
In our top stories, Westbury and Coronationville calm following water supply protests, and Trump urges peace after Charlie Kirk killing. Good morning. Calm has returned to Westbury and Coronationville following 2 days of violent protests over prolonged water supply interruptions. Johannesburg Mayor Dada Murero visited the area yesterday and promised residents water will be restored in 7 days. Police continue to keep a strong presence and traffic has been redirected. Residents are also busy removing debris and sweeping the streets to ensure a smooth traffic flow. Some residents say if Murero fails to deliver on his promise, they will block off key roads again.
Don't make empty promises to us and things, man. Yeah. We don't like it, man.
See, tomorrow can be the same thing, there's no water. You understand, Posa? Now we're waiting just for 7 days that they said we must wait for that 7 days. That 7 days the water is not back. Trust me, we're not doing it again. It's like again.
The Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Park Stau, has announced the withdrawal of draft credit regulations. The proposed regulation, which would have allowed educational institutions to submit student debt information to credit bureaus, was met with strong public opposition. Minister Tau's decision follows an overwhelming public response, including more than 20,000 submissions received before yesterday's deadline. The department says the vast majority of these responses were opposed to the regulations. Tsepo Mongai reports.
The draft amendments published in the Government Gazette in August triggered widespread fear that student debt could negatively affect graduates' ability to access credit. Minister Tau has committed to a revised process with focus on protecting students while also working to improve access to finance for micro, small and medium enterprises, this to address the existing credit funding gap.
Deputy President Paul Mashatile has vowed to never allow another form of apartheid in a democratic dispensation by scrapping black economic empowerment policies. The Deputy President answered oral questions before the National Council of Provinces in Parliament. He was questioned by the DA delegate Hendrik van der Berg. Mashatile denounced any suggestion that policies seeking to promote effective participation of black people in the mainstream economy are racially biased.
Honorable van der Berg, triple BEE is not a racial policy. It's a transformative legislation. You see, I spent more than 40 years of my life fighting apartheid. I'm not going to allow it to come back, not by any form. I am here where I am because I want to empower black people. They were oppressed, and today they don't even control the economy. I don't hate white people. I like them. Many of them are my friends, but we must share this wealth.
Police Minister Feroz Kachalia says despite a modest increase in personnel numbers in the South African Police Service over the past 3 years, staffing remains far from achieving optimum levels. In a written parliamentary reply, Kachalia says a prolonged period of declining personnel numbers has negatively impacted all business units, including the Forensic Science Laboratory. SAPS currently has 4 labs across the country, of which 3 are fully operational. 1 in Gauteng, 1 in the Western Cape and 1 in the Eastern Cape. The KwaZulu-Natal lab is only partially utilized. The minister says cases registered for analysis with the Forensic Science Laboratory increased by over 118,000 from 2023 to this year. And finally, U.S. President Donald Trump has called for a peaceful response to the murder of his ally Charlie Kirk, a right-wing youth leader and activist shot dead in Utah on Wednesday. Trump said Charlie Kirk was an advocate of non-violence, and that's how he, the president, would like people to react. The FBI investigation continues as the BBC's David Willis explains.
They issued 4 more photographs of this man, this suspect who they believe could slip easily into the campus. They describe him as a young man of college age who would have blended very easily into the campus environment. Now also, today, detectives recovered a hunting rifle wrapped in a blanket in woodland quite close to the university, and they also came across other clues, including a footprint and a palm print.
Recapping the top story, calm has returned to Westbury and Coronationville following 2 days of violent protests over prolonged water supply interruptions. Johannesburg Mayor Dada Morero visited the area yesterday and promised residents water will be restored in 7 days. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
If you want to save on your car insurance premium, you call Outsurance, right? But what if you don't save? Well, they'll give you cash just for trying. You heard right. Just ask for 500 Rand cash. But wait, there's more. If you don't save and have been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years, you can ask them for 1,500 Rand cash. Savings or cash, you always get something out.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP, T's, C's and information online.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Visit outsurance.co.za today. You always get something out.
It's a very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. Rugby, the Bok women are gearing up for their first ever Women's Rugby World Cup knockout match. And we'll bring you the Soweto Marathon to go ahead in November. Details just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Garsfontein. Traffic just starting to backlog back towards the R21. Very slow getting up through Rigel. Eskiem Pathlali into Marabastad is heavy, and the Ondersteport section very slow. Traffic lights out on the Soutpan Road, Roslyn Road to Paul Kruger. It's all very heavy, particularly if you come out of Shoshinguva on that M35. It'd be better to take the Montpellier Highway this morning, although you will hit some traffic coming in on Eskiem Pathlali. Joburg, easy Friday, much lighter volumes around the region today. A crash on the N3 south around Linksfield, causing a backlog on the bridge and on the N3 going south towards Galulis. Durban up to Pietermaritzburg, a breakdown before Market Road, pretty slow from Ashburton getting into that one. Crash after the Komashu Highway on the N2 North, starting to slow things up as well. Cape Town, M5 North, a crash before you get to the busy N2 off-ramp. That's a queue almost back towards the Kenilworth on-ramp, almost back as far as Racecourse Road. And the N1 fairly busy on a gentler sort of Friday. The N1 from N1 City to Sable Road, and then from sort of Kubo, get a change, a secondary queue into town via the elevated freeway. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
10 minutes after 8 on this Friday. It's great to be in your company. Welcome to it, the third hour of the Morning Brief. Let me quickly go through some of the messages that you've been sending on the WhatsApp line. So someone here says, very interesting ruling. This is in relation to the judgment of the Constitutional Court yesterday relating to men now being able to take up their spouse's surnames after marriage. So this person says, very interesting ruling. Foreign nationals and previously advantaged families could also lay claim to land and cultural reparations based on their wife's surname. Thanks to this landmark ruling, should South Africa choose to move in that direction, consider land claims and the hotly debated expropriation without compensation topic. So linking it to other issues that this person believes may actually come to the fore as a result of this judgment. Musa says the decision for men to assume a woman's surname, who exactly was it taken on behalf of? Is a question from Musa. Musa, I've been saying all morning that I just think that it's not peremptory, this whole judgment. It doesn't say after marriage, men must adopt the wife's surname. No, it doesn't. And the key phrase from Justice Leona Teron's delivery was, if they so wish. So that's who it was taken for, the decision. It was taken for those who, quote unquote, so wish for them to be able to do that. And there is no order that says men must now do, in that way. Let me quickly go through one or two. I want to take one or two messages that I saw that are reflecting on the conversation we had earlier on with Helen Zille, reflecting on her experience and being part of the journalists that at the time exposed the cover-up, because I've seen a few that have come through. Someone says, I'm sorry, but was there no one else who could contribute for the Steve Biko interview? Bantu Biko was killed for fighting against white domination and oppression. Ms. Zille presides over an organization hell-bent on perpetuating that very same domination. That was annoying to listen to and lends nothing to the conversation about Bantu Biko. I appreciate your sentiment about the DA, but let me say this in response to that. Helen Zille is one of a plethora of voices that you will hear in reflection about this story. Helen Zille is a leader of the DA now, but in 1977, as a matter of fact, the history that cannot be erased, she was part of the journalists that led in exposing that Steve Biko did not die from the official reasons that were cited. So if you ask whether was there no one else who could have been interviewed, there were many other people that could have been and are still going to be interviewed. Just because in the 3 hours that we have, we've got a gap to interview one person, doesn't mean that another show on SABC, on SAFM, will not pick up the conversation with Professor Pani Pityana, will not pick up the conversation with Nkosinathi Biko, will not pick up the conversation with Dr. Wendy or anyone else that has been a part of this story. Let's not be be reductionist in a sense that says, more than one thing cannot possibly be true at the same time. It is true that Helen Zille played the role that she played. Historically, it cannot be erased. And she is a voice that I believe was worth hearing. You didn't want to hear it? It's fine. I accept your feelings about the DA as it stands now. But historically, that's the role that she played in relation to this one story. And that's not to say I agree with her on every matter that comes up. And she knows that as well, does Helen Zille. Let me take one more all right, let me go to this one. Why isn't the SABC getting religious views, religious perspective on the issue of this new judgment of a man taking the surname of a woman, should we wish? That is from Mwako in Mukopane. Good suggestion, Mwako. Let's see if someone else, one of the other teams will pick up that conversation and actually take it forward. There's one that I wanted to respond to, simply because occasionally I respond to things that perhaps, I don't know. So this person says, isn't it amazing how your presenter, who claims to not have heard of Charlie Kirk before yesterday, suddenly starts using past Charlie Kirk quotes? Says this person. Come down to Thulasizwe. Let me respond to that by saying, you say I did not know about him until yesterday. So that means that status changed yesterday. And how did it change? In preparation for a conversation I knew was coming up on the show, I had to look up, and the story has been in the media cycle. So naturally, I was asking myself, who's this Charlie Kirk in relation to other commentators who are conservatives, who are within that movement that supports, President Donald Trump in the United States? There's something called Google, there's something called YouTube, and all of these quotes live there. I think I've said enough. I don't think I need to say more than that. So did you expect that I would come here not having checked who's this Charlie Kirk person? How do I conduct a conversation about him? Doesn't make sense. Take issue with whatever you think my views are about Charlie Kirk. That's fine. But come on, let's not have this debate of this nature over this thing. All right, let's go to, I'll take your calls, 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107. Let's get into it then, the third hour of the morning brief.
Emotions are brewing and the thirst for victory is real. City lads have a great plan to display a terrific brand of football, but Copper Belt ladies believe this is their moment to triumph. This is the Hollywood Bets Believe. Do not miss out on City lads versus Copper Belt ladies, the Sunday 11 September at 11 a.m. Live on SABC Sports on DTT Channel 4 and everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Let me start with a call from Putana in Rosebank, who wants to weigh in on that issue of Charlie Kirk. Good morning to you, Putana.
Good morning, my brother. Good morning. The chap, as young as he was a racist, white supremacy. He has no regard to a life of other people. He was celebrating the slaughter of the Palestinian people. And there are some quotes also that I've read about it. When he said, the gun death is unfortunate, but worth it to keep the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
I'm sure America knows about it. He was a racist, and he's a friend of Musk. He's a friend of Deputy President of that America. Was a racist. But also, he was fierce debater. He was someone there, what was black government doing for 30 years in South Africa? He asked that question.
Yeah.
Pertinent question.
All right. I hear you, Putana. Strong sentiments as always. Thank you for that. That's Putana out in Rosebank. Let me go to Zola in Bloemfontein. Good morning to you, Zola.
Good morning, Thulas.
Good morning.
Thulas, the issue of a man taking a woman's surname or a husband taking a surname, I think somewhere it will pose a serious challenge. Let's say the wife belongs to a family which is wealthy rather, and she happens to pass on, and there's a family home won't this man then claim to say, I'm also part of this family because of the surname?
Entering into inheritance issues of of his wife's family.
Yes.
I think it would fall
unless
flat.
Unless if maybe they have a contract or an agreement, they involve the whole family from the wife's side and from the husband's side, and it is known that this the surname won't let him inherit unjustifiably so.
I hear you, Zola, but I don't know if we'll run into those problems. Let me just let you go before I go to other people. Thank you for your call this morning, Zola in Bloemfontein. I think inheritance flows not just by mere surname. You can have a surname of a person and still be, what's the word? Be precluded from inheriting from that person's estate for one reason or another, right? Whether it's testate, succession in terms of you have a will, so that's easier. That scenario would probably not arise. But also even in terms of interstate succession, in terms of the lines that the inheritance will follow, is this husband a person who is within that line of inheritance on the side of his wife's family? It just seems to me that it would need to be a very unique situation where inheritance flows in that direction and ends up with the husband, and certainly not by virtue of just carrying the surname of the wife. Frank in Roodepoort, good morning to you.
Hi, Thulas. Frank here. Thulas, I also want to speak to this thing of the ruling by the Constitutional Court. And maybe you can enlighten me here, or balance me, as someone who maybe has a legal background. Before a woman gets married, right, the pronoun is Miss, right, M-I-S-S. And then when they get married, it changes to Mrs., right? And then obviously when they get divorced or whatever, and then it changes back to Miss with the MS, right? And obviously there's also that thing of maiden names. What's the legal position then of the Constitutional Court on those pronouns and everything? Will those also have to change for men? So a man would then now have to be Mrs. I don't know, Mrs. When they change the surname,
No, I hear you. I don't think that enjoys
I feel like it's just so disruptive. Yes.
I don't think that has any regulation in law, Frank, as I let you go. I think that, that's really been a matter of preference. That's why most people just say Ms. Don't say Miss or Mrs. Just say call Ms. And we keep it moving. It's just a title, honorific or whatever it is, whatever it's called. I don't think this particular judgment has any implications for that. Maybe Big in Bombela might have a better answer than I do. Good morning to you, Big.
My big brother, let me start by saying any person who judges your credibility or your competency, he must first ask us, because we believe and we see that you do your homework before coming to the show. I want to say to you, Thulas, I was listening carefully to Justice Theron yesterday when they were handing down the ruling. I'm disturbed by the influence of the West and that the Constitutional Court is undermining our customary law. A surname is a symbol of a black person in any way, in any form, of his true identity. So we know that the Constitutional Court has got powers to declare a statute or a conduct invalid. But I believe that the parliamentarians or the people in parliament will have to look at a way as to how are they going to deal with this issue customarily. Because if this law is going to be passed, I can tell you now, we as African people, we are done and dusted, and we'll never have our bases, and we can't even throw back our roots as black people.
Gotcha. Peggy, thank you for that. That's Peggy in Bombela. I appreciate the sentiment at the start of your call, Peggy, but I do need to just highlight that I'm not beyond being questioned or even criticized and critiqued. No. I'm very open to that. I was only responding to that point simply because it just, it was niggling at me that, just because I didn't know this guy until yesterday, therefore, I don't have the wherewithal to know about him enough to actually start a conversation about him. By the way, I must just out and out say, because I didn't know him and I follow a lot of US politics, but I don't have strong feelings on Charlie Kirk. I have strong feelings about settling differences by violence and killing a person. That's obviously unacceptable, whoever the person is in South Africa anyway. But this guy, no, I didn't follow him that closely. And I don't feel that I should be my passions should be inflamed by him post his death. Kulegani, KZN, you want to talk about Charlie Kirk?
Yes, Thulas, you took the words right out of my mouth. Thulasizwe Simelane is divisive, but he doesn't deserve to be killed. It really upsets me, the killing of this man. Even if, yes, I'm a conservative, but yes, I don't agree with some other things he said. But simply because I don't agree with what he said about airplanes and that, doesn't deserve for him to be killed. We should stand up against political intolerance.
Absolutely.
We as a nation, as a world, to say enough is enough. Enough people have been killed in the States because of their viewpoints. We should take a stand and talk. This man was all about dialogue. If you disagreed with him, hand you the mic and you would talk. It really upset me, the killing of this guy. He left 2 small children. It's sad.
Absolutely.
We as a country, we did the same with I think it was Biko when he died. People said, no, he deserves to be dead. No, it's a human being that left. We should exercise political tolerance.
Spot on.
No matter what views he stood for.
Kulegani.
We should talk, learn to talk.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that call out of KZN. Lastly, AB in Durban, good morning. Also on the same topic, Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, good morning, Thulas. There are some people who are speaking good things about Charlie Kirk. A simple Google search and you will find that he was a rabidly racist and an out-and-out bigot, a first-class white supremacist who helped Trump get supporters. With regard to blacks, about black women leaders and affirmative action, he condemned the election of black women to the U.S. Congress like Ketanji Brown Jackson and Sheila Jackson Lee. He said, you do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken seriously without affirmative action. You had to steal a white man's slot. This is the supposed hero for whom Trump lowered the flag at half-mast. Kirk was an equal opportunity hater who called Martin Luther King awful and not a good person. He also said, we made a huge mistake when we passed the Civil Rights Act in the 1960s. That, to us, as you know, is the act that granted equal rights to black people. And as you mentioned, in a shockingly, deeply racist outburst, he said, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. When Zoran Mamdani, a Muslim, shocked the U.S. by winning the New York City Democratic primary election, Kirk said, Muslims brought down the Twin Towers. Now a Muslim socialist is on pace to run New York City. He called Islam the sword that the left is using to slit the throat of America. And he was a strong supporter of the genocide in Gaza and declared that there's no such thing as a Palestinian. Well, ironically, there's no Charlie Kirk now.
All right. Thank you for that. That's AB in Durban reflecting on that. Thank you for your calls. I'll take more a bit later on.
Do you know what's hiding behind the colorful packaging of unhealthy food? Big food companies target children with unhealthy packaged foods that hide high levels of sugar, salt, and fat, which could lead to heart disease, diabetes, and hypertension. But the truth is hidden from consumers. Front of package warning labels are a proven solution to help consumers make informed decisions. The government must act now. We have the right to know what's in our food. Demand front of package warning labels. Sign the petition on heala.org, HEALA.org, by the 30th of September.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai Khan is in the studio. After she's done with her update, she's going to tell us about Mr. Khan. And
Sorry, who?
And we're not talking about your father here. Tell me about the Bok women gearing up for the first ever Women's Rugby World Cup knockout match, yeah?
Oh, yeah, Thulas. They've got 7 forwards on the bench. So you could forget the bomb squad. It's basically the whole the whole artillery unit. It's the Springbok women. Their head coach faced the brain, naming Nola Sindiso Boy at lock for tomorrow's landmark Rugby World Cup quarterfinal against New Zealand. 2 p.m. is that kickoff. The veteran captain returns alongside key starters Lindelwa Gwala, Danelle Lochner, Sizopila Solonsi, Libby Janse van Rensburg, Zintle Mpupa and Ayanda Malinga, all rested last week to preserve fresh legs for the biggest match in Bok women history. Let's go to the Springboks men's squad. After a narrow 24-17 loss at Eden Park, the Springbok men know they must sharpen up for the rematch with the All Blacks at Wellington, with lineouts and breakdowns identified as weak spots. We've got the Bok replacement hooker Marnus van der Merwe applauding the Kiwis' guile at the lineout, but vowed to put a halt to it.
They played the tricks very well, but they did. Yeah, we looked at a video. We planned how we're going to stop it. We planned how we're going to make them do more errors. So, yeah, I think it's just going back to the old tactics and see where we can stop them. So, yeah, we will just go and play the game.
Moving now to cricket, the Proteas, they have a 1-0 lead going into tonight's second T20 international against England at Old Trafford in Manchester. South Africa won a rain-affected opener in Cardiff by 14 runs, with captain Aiden Markram and Donovan Ferreira starting with the bat. The play gets underway at 7:30 tonight. Now, tomorrow's MTN 8 final pits Orlando Pirates against Stellenbosch FC in what promises to be a fiery rematch of last year's clash. The Buccaneers edged Delhi's 3-1 then, thanks in part to a stoppage time winner that stirred controversy. This year, the venue is Mbombela Stadium. Kick-off at 6 p.m. live on SABC Sport. More soccer news. The University of the Western Cape coach, Tina Sonkembule, says they expect a tough contest when they face the University of Joburg ladies in the 2025 Women's Varsity Football Final.
We start preparing for that game next week. That's from Monday. But yeah, you are right. They are a very energetic side. But I think we also have a strong back four. In fact, back five with our goalkeeper. So it will be interesting encounter how their front three cope with our back four.
And finally, organisers have confirmed that the iconic Soweto Marathon will take place on the 30th of November, starting and finishing at Nasrec. The confirmation follows weeks of uncertainty over governance disputes. And that's your sport. We're lacing up for that. Keep it locked on SAFM and look out for me on Spotlight tomorrow between 7 and 9 p.m. I'm Zaikan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, a man has been shot and killed and 2 others injured in Thulasizwe Mitchell's Plain in Cape Town after they came under attack by a lone gunman last night. Calm has returned to Westbury and Coronationville following 2 days of violent protests over prolonged water supply interruptions. Johannesburg Mayor Dada Murero visited the area yesterday and promised residents water will be restored in 7 days. And the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Parks Tau, has announced the withdrawal of draft credit regulations. The proposed regulation would have allowed educational institutions to submit student debt information to credit bureaus, was met with strong public opposition. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Still busy around Pretoria with a breakdown on the M1 heading north up into Garsfontein. Friday volumes pushing queues back through the R21 and back towards sort of Boerta Avenue. It is quite heavy. The Soutpan Road remains heavy as well. That's the M35 out of Schusenguve. There's no traffic lights at the bottom there at the Rossen Road. So that's all very slow. Joburg's N3 backed up passing Edenvale down to a breakdown around Galulis, and the M1 from Rivonia Road under a bit of pressure this morning down towards William Mandela Drive. Now, Durban Durban side, a collision on the N2 going north up towards Mswanga. Looks like it's probably out of the way. That traffic that was backlogging is starting to ease up. Don't forget this one this weekend, N2 South. Okay, so you're coming from the airport. You land at King Shaka International Airport. You want to get out towards Pietermaritzburg or that side of Durban. You cannot turn off the N2 southbound onto the N3 westbound. Okay, so N2 South onto the N3 Pietermaritzburg from 6 p.m. on Saturday right through until 4 a.m. on Monday morning. Hopefully, there'll be signs to direct you off at the M19. But if you miss that and you get to Spaghetti Junction, realize it's closed, you then got to go down to the M7 and then take that M7 divert out through Queensborough, North Park, and then up towards the N3, the Pinetown side. So just be aware it's going to be heavily disrupted. 6 p.m. Saturday until 4 a.m. Monday. Cape Town, pretty gentle sort of conditions there for a Friday as well. The N1's busy to Sable Road, busy over the elevated freeway. I'll tell you where there is a lot of traffic congestion this morning between Kenilworth and Claremont. There's a lot of roadworks on that corridor, and there's a lot of traffic, particularly towards Stanhope Bridge territory. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The Business Update on SAFM.
All right, for the last update of the week, let's turn to Ndawling Lichela. Ndawling, we all know why this is the case. Online retail sales are booming in South Africa. I don't even need to spell it. So go ahead and lay it all out and take accountability for it. All your trolleys that are packed with goods from various stores online. Tell us about it.
You know what I must say? I play my part in this boom, right?
Yeah.
And this is according to a study by Worldwide Works in collaboration with MasterCard, Peach Payments, and Ask Africa. Online retail sales grew by 35% last year to 96 billion rands, representing around 8% of all retail trade. Growth has been driven by on-demand grocery shopping, strong growth in fashion, and the increasing presence of international competitors. Now, the grocery segment has seen significant growth thanks to on-demand shopping apps introduced by major retailers like ShopRite, Pick n Pay, and Woolies. Online fashion sales are also thriving, with retailers investing in digital platforms that offer better user experiences, the likes of TFG's Bash and international players like Shein benefiting from that. Now, the CEO of Worldwide Works, Arthur Goldstuck, said that online retail has become a structural force in the economy, with nearly 1 in every 10 rand spent at retail now being online. Goldstuck expects online retail turnover to surpass 130 billion rands this year, accounting for 10% of the country's total retail market.
So, Ndawling, I'm big on online shopping
Yes.
for various goods. But I'm just, the one I don't think I'll ever embrace is clothing shopping online. Simply because I don't like returning things to the store when I discover something that just is not right or something, even if it's objectively something
Yeah.
I should return it for. I've had instances where I just keep the thing and give it to someone else to use.
Is it more of a sizing thing?
Let's say it's a sizing thing. Yeah. Let's say it comes in and it's just slightly off the mark in terms of size. Now I have the schlep of, now I must return this thing. That part I just can't do. I'm sorry. Even with the actual stores, returning something is not in me. I don't like it.
I think that's just a you problem, Thulas, because I know I enjoy shopping online, especially when it comes to clothes. And the more you do it, the more you can get your size right.
Until one day it comes back and it's it's big enough for a toddler.
Okay. We're not shopping on Temu.
Let's go to this one now, darling, before we get ourselves into trouble. Tell me about mining production. You're saying that it rose in July, yeah?
Another big jump in production for that industry, as the sector delivered a 4.4% rise in output in July, starting Q3 on a high. Now, the uptick was driven by iron ore and PGMs. Iron ore production rose by 12.2%, while PGMs increased by 6.2% year on year. Other minerals that contributed to the growth include diamonds, chromium ore, and coal. However, the industry experienced declines in manganese ore, copper, and nickel production. On a seasonally adjusted basis, mining production increased by 1% in July compared to June, Over the 3 months ended July, seasonally adjusted mining production rose close to 6% compared to the previous 3 months, with PGMs and gold being the largest positive contributors. In the meantime, mineral sales also showed growth, increasing by 2.2% in July. Economists have welcomed the print, but still warn that issues at our ports are capping the industry's export capabilities.
All right, lastly, what kind of a trading day can we expect in the markets on this Friday?
The local market's likely to start the day in the green. It's quiet on the company news front, with investors shifting their focus to monetary policy. Both the Fed and SARB out with rates decisions next week. Ahead of those moves, the rand this morning has been trading stronger at 17.39 to the dollar. Then over in the commodities scene, the oil that is, yes, on the back foot, down 0.7%, sitting just above $65 per barrel. And then back to equities in Wall Street, futures are flat. Whilst inflation risks are rising, traders are still upbeat, counting on a 25 basis point cut from the Fed. That monetary policy optimism also filtering through to Asian stocks, with those markets on track to close the week in the green.
All right, let's leave you to that, and you can go and clear all those cards when Dowling. Have a great weekend. Dowling Lichela has kept you updated on business, economics, and the markets over the last 3 hours.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAFM. Leading the conversation.
Top Sport with Michael Abramson.
Joining us now on the line is the netball coach at Helpmekaar High School, Tanya Seystad. Tanya, good to have you on the show. Good evening. Lovely to chat to you, and lovely to hear about all the school's successes that, as the netball coach, you must be very, very proud of.
Yeah, very relieved and very proud.
Talk to us about what happened this past weekend that got the school to this stage. Obviously, lots and lots of competition, and great that the under-15s are doing so well.
When you put in the work, you can show up on the day and just keep cool, calm, collected, poker face, and hope for a little bit of luck. The schedule was quite full. It started on the Thursday, where we played 2 pool games. On the Friday, we played another 6 pool games. And then on the Saturday, we played quarter, semis, and finals.
Top Sport on SAFM.
The SABC is proud to partner with Africa's biggest marketing conference, the Nedbank IMC. One day, 25 top speakers, including 6 global keynotes. The theme this year is Marketing is Business, and anyone in the business of communication should be there. The conference is taking place on the 18th of September in person in Johannesburg or online. Book now at imcconference.com. Marketing is Business.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Let's fit in this discussion now on an aspect of family law that's, quite interesting, and it's topical at the moment. Standard Bank issuing a stark warning to unmarried couples in this country. Living together without formal legal arrangements can leave partners vulnerable to devastating legal and financial consequences in the event of death or separation. While more couples are choosing to cohabit before or instead of marrying, South African law still does not automatically recognize these partnerships, meaning no guaranteed rights to inheritance, estate claims, or spousal maintenance. Let's make sense of it all. I'm joined by Mary Jane Mphahlele, an attorney in family law at Mphahlele Attorneys. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. So why would an institution like Standard Bank, the people like Shaga Zwane, the head of insurance and fiduciary at Standard Bank, issue this kind of warning? What is the legal minefield that you are navigating as a couple when you choose to cohabit without entering into a marriage? All right, Mary Jane, let me do something very quickly. We can't hear you at the moment. I've got you now. Please pick up from the point. Why would an advisory like this be even necessary?
Many South Africans in the country who are currently staying together or fat-and setting, as we would say, many of them are under the impression that they are entitled to some benefits that accrue to couples that are married, whether in community of property or out of community of property with accrual. So I would understand that Standard Bank has been receiving quite a number of claims when it comes to deceased estates, which these things are usually come to light at that time where people find out that in actual fact there's no benefits of cohabiting, and that they wouldn't be entitled to the same benefits of a couple that is legally married under whether a marriage in community of property or a marriage out of community of property with or without accrual.
But does it matter the length of time that a couple has been living together without necessarily, entering into a marriage? Does that lead to certain rights and obligations arising such that the case can be made for some of these benefits?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The South African legal system does not recognize cohabitation as a legal marriage, regardless of how many years the parties have lived together. There is no such a thing as common law marriage in South Africa. So living together, even for a decade or 2 or 3, does not create the same rights and duties that a marriage would, create.
So what are some of the difficulties that then arise upon death or separation if the couple never really, formalizes their living arrangement?
Mostly we see with inheritances and succession, where someone who was fat-and setting or cohabiting with another party, that other person passes on and they try to, lodge a claim against the estate, and they find that, they can't do that because there is no legal entitlement. They don't have an automatic entitlement to that person's estate. And in cases where these people now have to separate, we have to now deal with who stays with the children and the maintenance. If parties bought properties together, how are those dealt with? And in the absence of a marriage, how are those dealt with as just two people co-owning property without any underlying relationship like a marriage?
So what's the best word there? What's the best word of advice, without asking you to give legal advice on air? But what's the best approach to these issues? Conclude a contract of some sort that regulates the various aspects?
Absolutely, absolutely. The parties can conclude a cohabitation agreement which would regulate their finances and any property that they own together. And if they do have children, their obligations towards those children. I mean, obviously, parents are obligated both to contribute to the maintenance of the children, but it's much easier if this is reduced in an agreement, which can be reduced to a court order. So, such an agreement, also doing a will or a trust, or just generally considering estate planning holistically, can assist parties who are staying together to ensure that if the other party passes on, the other party can be protected, or they don't have to go through extra lengths to prove their entitlement to certain properties or assets that they jointly own together.
And in fact, those extra lengths that you talk about as a parting shot, Mary Jane, that became an issue, and I suppose it's difficult. It imposes a certain difficulty to have to prove that you are entitled to some benefit or another. That was the essence of what that case a couple of years ago, that Bwanya case, what it said about you need now to prove that there was a reciprocal duty of support, and hence you are entitled, for instance, to support after the person has passed on.
Absolutely, absolutely. And having to prove that is money, because we lawyers, we are going to absolutely charge you to have to prove that. So having these agreements in place, it also just saves you money in the future, and also just ensures that your position is clear when the other party unfortunately passes on or you separate.
All right, thank you for that. That's Mary Jane Mphahlele, attorney in family law at Mphahlele Attorneys.
Who's behind the mask? A singing pineapple? A disco dancing dokolosh? It can only mean one thing. It's the Masked Singer US Season 9, the only show where celebrities hide behind wild costumes and even wilder vocals. Is that Beyonce? No. It's your dentist dressed as a giant taco. Unmask the madness, the mystery, and the mayhem. Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. on S3. S3's got the masks, the music, and maybe your favorite celeb in a flamingo suit. Don't miss it.
These are the weekend shows on SAFM. Music of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. The Weekend View with Bongiwe Zwane. The Jet Set Breakfast with Michelle Constant. Seasons with Khomotso KG Mwekezi. The Soundtrack of Your Life with Ernest Pillay. Weekend Sundowner Classics with Kutlwano Masote. Spotlight with Zai Khan. The Weekend with John Kherika. Shifting Your Lens with Bertha Charuma. This is SAFM.
The SABC is proud to partner with Africa's biggest marketing conference, the Nedbank IMC. One day, 25 top speakers, including 6 global keynotes. The theme this year is Marketing is Business, and anyone in the business of communication should be there. The conference is taking place on the 18th of September in person in Johannesburg or online. Book now at imcconference.com. Marketing is business.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Couple of problems on the N1 highway in both directions. Southbound through Midrand, a stationary vehicle before Allendale. So that's pushing a traffic delay back through New Road and back towards Olifantsfontein. On your way to Joburg, it's slow. And then heading the other way through Pretoria, a breakdown on the M1 North before Garsfontein. That's a stationary truck. That's quite a heavy backlog back through the R21. You'll also queue on the R21 ramp to get into that N1 North queue as well. Durban easing up the N2 going north. Had a crash before you get to the Schlanger exit. Traffic is a little bit slow. It was a lot worse earlier this morning, but seems to be largely moving that obstruction out of the way. Cape Town, just been a crash on the N2 inbound at Mowbray Main Road. On your way to Hospital Bend, that's pushing queues back to Jan Smuts Drive. It's also holding traffic on the M5 up as you come up from Rondebosch and try and turn in to that N2. The N1 into town, still pretty slow from Marine Drive up over the elevated freeway into the city centre. Baden-Powell, bit sluggish still at Strandfontein Road with a traffic light timing issue there. And the big sort of disruption this morning is around the Claremont area. If you're going between Kenilworth and Claremont, there's a lot of roadworks on that Imam Haroun Road. Both directions actually absolutely jam-packed. So if you're coming in off the M5 wanting to get through to Claremont or leaving Claremont wanting to get out through Kenilworth to sort of Access Park area and what have you, it is quite heavy disruption. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
I tell you what, I don't want to be a swamp, right? When tributes and respect is being poured out towards someone and then I hold it back and I become the swamp that doesn't pass it on. Butana in Rosebank, you have your fans, okay? People love you. The love is flowing for Butana in Rosebank. As always, actually, whenever he calls, you'll get 1 or 2 people that say, "I man, that Butana guy." So, Vusi Lushaba in Gwelga Banana, I suppose that's Durban when Vusi Etegwin says, always good to end the week with Butana from Rosebank and his screams, and puts on those laughing emojis. And in fact, let me go quickly to this one from Sebata Letsualo in East London, who says, Today I feel like honoring Mr. Butana in Rosebank. The man is passionate about South Africa. I mean, how will my day be without listening to the strong views of Butana? he may become one of anti-corruption team members we need as a country. So that's from Sebata Letswalo. So there you have it, Wena Putana in Rosebank. People love you. You have your fans and supporters. All right, let me go to Vuyiswa in Parktown. Let me take a call from Vuyiswa in Parktown. Vuyiswa, good morning.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Thanks for taking my call. I want to actually find out from you, as media personalities in this country, why are you not taking us through what is happening with Simba, Advocate Simba? Because I understand he's been unmasked, that he doesn't have the qualification. The one who was defending the ZEP and all people that
the
have
Zimbabwe
got
exemption permits.
If it was a South African, this is our born in because you guys are going to make such a very big noise. Now it's Simba, then he's he's anarchy.
Yeah.
No one is talking about it.
No.
And I would like to also weigh into this Ghana government checking the immigration criminals into their country. For me, it's not a surprise. We lost a lot of cadres in London during exile, where Ghanaians and some African Americans, even brothers from the continent, were working for the CIA. And hence, we don't have the Umboisa. And last year, I would like to say...
I'm sorry, so I do need to move on. I've taken 2 points from you. I apologize. Thank you for raising the point.
Please tell us about Simba.
Absolutely. Vuiswa, I had not seen the story you're talking about. I don't always get to see all the stories because, there's so much that is happening. But for you, I will look at that story, and if indeed there's a story for us to reflect, gladly, I will ensure that we reflect that story sometime early next week. Bra Kingston and Kimberley, good morning to you.
Good morning, Brother Thulas. I'll be very brief. Thank you. Firstly, I would just like to say, may the soul of Brother Kirk rest in peace. Some of whom that has been following that guy. It was a fearless guy who just spoke out his mind, and he was killed for speaking his mind. And Bratulas, I just want to say to the South Africans and to your listeners that please, guys, don't be surprised of any moral act that is being enacted in South Africa. We are living in a country where we endorse every wrong moral thing. So don't be surprised and flabbergasted, astonished about this law that has been granted to us by our constitution in our country, that we can take now the surnames of our wives. It is ludicrous, it is insane, and it is prophecy fulfilling. That's all what I can say.
All right,
it has been told by the prophet.
But no one is going to force you, though. You understand that, right?
Yeah, Bratulas. Yes, Bratulas, but I'm just saying people shouldn't be flabbergasted. This is a country that endorses every moral thing. We've got same-sex marriages that has been endorsed, prostitution. Also, why are we surprised about this one?
Right.
This one is just a tip on the iceberg.
Gotcha.
This is South Africa, guys.
All right, Bra Kingston out in Kimberley. Let me take voice notes now. Let me go to this one. I listened to Kathy Motlatlana's laying out the issues around this NERSA miscalculation of the costs involved in Eskom's business in the determination of what tariff to grant Eskom. It was absolutely magisterial in its authority and laying out the issues. In fact, it got me so angry. I nearly used another word just a second ago, but that's how I was feeling as Kathy was laying it out yesterday at the start of her show. So I suppose that conversation has been lingering on the mind of this person, because it really is an atrocious situation that we find ourselves in, having to pay 50 billion rand in terms of what we pay in electricity, simply because, the human beings at NERSA had a miscalculation.
Thulas, Katlego in Cape Town. So NERSA and Eskom pull a 54 billion heist, and we are busy being distracted by a constitutional court judgment that allows men to take up their wives' surnames, and that judgment is also issued during Heritage Month, which makes the whole issue a big issue or a taboo. But they are trying to distract us from the Eskom and NERSA scandal.
Ungavumi Ngavumi, don't be distracted. We can have multiple conversations at the same time, right? And insist on that accountability. And I like what Kathy was saying, that are we to believe that this one individual employee, executive or whatever position they hold within NERSA was solely responsible for this blunder that is now going to cost all of us in terms of the tariffs? Where's accountability in that? So you're absolutely right. Don't allow yourself to be distracted.
Good morning, Thulasizwe Simelane from Durban. Thulas, we've been asking ourselves, who does the South African Human Rights Commission represent? And it seems to be representing foreigners. Now we know that people in charge are foreigners. And South Africans are staying at home and we're crying unemployment. Every time we say, no, South Africans are unemployed, we are told, no, we are lazy, we are that. Boom. South African Human Rights Commission sitting with foreigners on the chair. So who has more rights? The foreigners, because that person who's sitting there is a foreigner.
I'm really keen to have a conversation with the South African Human Rights Commission about some of the perceptions that I hear about the work that they do. And perhaps it might only be fair to give them enough time. So we might want to have them in the hour 7 and not book another interview, so that we take them at the top of 7 and have a proper extensive interview with them to just explain some of the perceptions versus the reality of the work that they do. So I want to leave that there, so that in future, perhaps next week, when we hopefully can host them, they can then talk to the issues that come up from time to time.
Thulasizwe, tell me, this law of men being allowed to take their wives' surnames, what is it about? Was it ever illegal for me to take my wife's surnames? Because it was never a must for my wife to take my surname. We could always have double barrel surnames. What happened?
Yeah.
I thought we could do what we want already.
It wasn't illegal in the sense that it was banned, but if you had approached Home Affairs, as one of the couples did in that case, and said, I'm a husband, I want to take up my wife's surname, they would have looked you in the eye with blank stares and said, what are you talking about? Under what law do you want us to do what you want us to do? So that's why it had to, at an official level. I suppose unofficially you could always do it if you had wanted to do it. But at law, you could not. There was no law that enabled you, that you could bear an ID book that carries your name and your wife's surname. That's where we leave it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a fantastic weekend. The Talking Point is up next here on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. You've been briefed.
In our top stories, a Cape Town man shot dead and 2 others injured, and Lalianongwe Street in Johannesburg officially reopened. Good morning. A man has been shot and killed and 2 others injured in Tafelsig Mitchell's Plain in Cape Town after they came under attack by a lone gunman last night. Police spokesperson Wesley Tweeks says the 3 victims were sitting on the side of the road when the incident happened. He says the motive for the attack is still unknown.
According to reports, the victims were sitting on an electricity box when the suspect approached them and opened fire before fleeing the scene. The 23-year-old victim was declared deceased on the scene by medical personnel, while the other victims were taken to a medical facility for treatment. The motive for the attack forms part of the police investigation. Mitchell's Plain detectives are investigating murder and attempted murder cases.
The Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Park Stau, has announced the withdrawal of draft credit regulations. The proposed regulation, which would have allowed educational institutions to submit student debt information to credit bureaus, was met with strong public opposition. Minister Tau's decision follows an overwhelming public response, including more than 20,000 submissions received before yesterday's deadline. The department says the vast majority of these responses were opposed to the regulations. Tsepo Mongai reports.
The draft amendments published in the Government Gazette in August triggered widespread fear that student debt could negatively affect graduates' ability to access credit. Minister Tau has committed to a revised process with focus on protecting students while also working to improve access to finance for micro, small and medium enterprises, this to address the existing credit funding gap.
Calm has returned to Westbury and Coronationville following 2 days of violent protests over prolonged water supply interruptions. Johannesburg Mayor Dada Morero visited the area yesterday and promised residents water will be restored in 7 days. Police continue to keep a strong presence and traffic has been redirected. Earlier, residents removed debris and swept the streets. Some residents say if Morero fails to deliver on his promise, they will block off key roads again.
Don't make empty promises to us and things, man. Yeah. We don't like it, man.
See, the tomorrow kind is the same thing, there's no water. You understand, Father? Now we're waiting just for 7 days that they said we must wait for that 7 days. That 7 days the water is not back. Trust me, we're not do it again. It's like again.
Lillian Ngwe Street, formerly known as Bree Street in the Johannesburg CBD, has officially been opened to the public. This morning, sounds of cheers and celebration were heard as motorists and pedestrians celebrated after the long-awaited reopening. The busy inner city street has been closed for more than 2 years following an underground gas explosion in July 2023. The blast resulted in extensive damage to infrastructure and the death of one person. Johannesburg